miehleketo hi dya yi tlhela hi xipa ndzi ri halala Aldrin Sampear halala wena la tselekiweke eswitikweni swa vutlhari a katingiwa etimbiteni ta vutivi a sekiwa hi galaza ra vutshila loko ri mina ntombi ya mutanga n'waxambula makutla wa madyafu ri la tsundzuka n'wana hi ku heta ndzi ku hluvulela xihuku ndzi ri kula u ringana na ndlopfu halala Aldrin Sampear halala.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 9 minutes after 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to Beyond the Headline with me, Aldrin Sampear. Thank you so much for choosing us this afternoon. So coming up on the show this afternoon, we start off with the conversation with Themba Fosi, the MMC for Utilities and Regional Operations and Coordination in the city of Tshwane. They've announced that residents of Soshanguve should experience an 11-hour-long electricity supply outage, which will start today until Friday. So we'll be speaking to Themba Fosi, the MMC for Utilities and Regional Operations and Coordination in the city of Tshwane with regards to that. And then also on the show this afternoon, we speak to Moagesi Sibande, who's a General Manager for Civic Education and Research at the Electoral Commission. So the IEC and the Human Science Research Council has conducted a survey looking into youth apathy and why young people are not participating in our democracy as well as our elections. So, and I have to say that this is what I found very interesting from that survey. It found that youth believe that voting was pointless as political parties were the same. 47% indicated that they found it difficult to find a political party that represents their interest. And my question is, so if you feel that all of the political parties are the same, does that then mean, or how then do you arrive at the conclusion that I'd rather not participate in the elections because all of these political parties are the same? Maybe amongst those 47% youth who believe that it's pointless to vote because all the parties have the same interest at heart. And then you then look and juxtapose that to our unemployment rate. Youth unemployment is standing at 43.4%. 43.4%, and then you have 47% of the youth who say that they find it difficult to find a political party that represents their interest. So that conversation is coming up a bit later on. We're also taking your voice notes on 0614-104-107. At 10 to 4, we speak to the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Togo Titiza, and this is after the announcement by the Botswana government that they will extend the ban on certain fresh produce coming from South Africa. It started back in 2022 and now the announcement has been made that it will be extended. It was supposed to actually lapse now in December, but now the government has said that they will extend it, and the president of Botswana, President Moagesi Masisi, had said that the import ban, first in force in January 2022, has resulted in a significant reduction in the country's import bill for fresh produce by 71%. So we'll be speaking to the minister with regards to this, because the minister seems to be in agreement with the farmers that are protesting against this decision that has been taken by the government of Botswana. Also coming up on the show this afternoon, you may have seen the report that was released by the president looking into the State Capture Commission of Inquiry's recommendations and how far they've gone since the report was finalized and handed over to the president. Another thing that the president mentions in that report is that government will set up an interdepartmental task team that will develop a register to track all public officials across the 3 spheres of governance who have been fired or dismissed as a result of misconduct. And this one is interesting because you'd be able to track them down. Remember that they all have their own personal numbers, or PAS numbers, as some would call it, the personal numbers, and say that this particular individual was fired at this particular institution, and therefore perhaps maybe we won't hire that person because they've been found guilty of misconduct or whatever. However, though, yesterday we spoke to the Democratic Alliance, and remember the Democratic Alliance saying that they want the president to make public his assessment of the KPIs or the targets that had been set out by ministers and where they have failed. And we were told by the president's spokesperson that the president doesn't want to embarrass the ministers. So the ministers also have a role to play when it comes to how the state actually functions. With that said, and with the intention of having such a register, should it also not be made public then when a president decides to reshuffle his cabinet, president, premier, as well as mayors, when they decide to reshuffle the cabinet, shouldn't it also be made public why such a decision has been taken, so that we avoid that person being appointed again by another minister, another president, another mayor? Because essentially we're dealing with the same things here. It is about misconduct, and it is also an affront to the people that you're actually supposed to serve. So it can't just stop with the officials that are appointed by the state, but I think it should also be extended to the ministers, the MECs, as well as the MMCs. What do you think about it? We'll have that conversation with Dr. Tinanzo, who's a local governance specialist at the UJ and also associate of Ndiso Consulting. So 0614-104-107, your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. Another reminder that we're streaming live on Facebook as well as YouTube, so we'll be taking your comments on our Facebook as well as our YouTube pages.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
We start off with this conversation. Themba Fosi, the MMC for Utilities and Regional Operations and Coordination at the City of Tshwane, they've announced that the Soshanguve residents will experience a power supply interruption for at least 11 hours starting from today until Friday due to the construction of the Apollo Dinaledi 400 kV line. And Themba Fosi now joining us on the line. MMC, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. Tell us about the construction of the Apollo Dinaledi KV line and also the communication that you've made to the people of Soshanguve.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you very much for giving me the platform again to be able to cascade this information to our residents. Okay, let me just give you a little bit of a background. The actual construction is for the Dipororo substation, which will be an infeed station from Eskom to the city of Tshwane and then eventually to our residents. So on that line, is called Apollo Dinaledi line that will be able to give the north side of Pretoria stable electricity so far as the provision of electricity on our side. And this was supposed to have taken place a little bit earlier, but due to the exams, where our matrics were writing our exams, so we felt that it's prudent that we should suspend this up until they have done with the examinations and most of the students are home. Then we can be able to do the installation, and that's why we are here. The areas that will be affected is the Block L, basically the whole of Soshanguve. All the blocks will be affected from today, between 6 in the morning up until 1700, up until the construction is completed. So we appeal to our residents to treat this as the electricity as live, so that instances where there is work that needs to be done on the grid and they're not affected.
Yeah. And then in terms of the communication, do you think that you've communicated well in advance to the residents?
Yeah, remember, this is actually a postponement.
Yeah.
Our first announcement was before the exam. Our students were supposed to write their exams. Now, that's why we felt prudent that the complaints that our kids are writing exams, so this is not the best time to do that. Thus, we postponed it to a proper time where most of the students are actually home.
Yeah, but was this properly communicated, do you think, to the residents?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah. So the last time when you made the postponement, did you make the postponement with a date that says that on the 5th, on the 6th, we will start the reconstruction, and of course that you won't have electricity?
Yes, we did. That information was cascaded. Remember, we don't communicate only via our own mainline, because not everybody has an luxury of having a smartphone to be able to see and all of that. So we've got councillors also on the ground that know this information. Remember, with this Dipororo substation installation, the custodian of that ward also has the responsibility to share this information to all the residents around the area, even in the far-flung areas of his ward, and obviously to areas where other councillors are involved. But this information was sent out timelessly.
Okay. And then in terms of the hours, because it says 11 hours in total, is this 11 hours daily?
Daily, yes, for 3-4 days, yes. From today, tomorrow, and Friday. Friday, we are done.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Themba Fosi, who is the MMC for Utilities and Regional Operations and Coordination at the city of Tshwane. So as you heard, if you stay in Soshanguve or have family members in Soshanguve and perhaps they didn't get this information, that there won't be electricity for 11 hours per day until Friday. 0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Hallo Michelise, hope you well. Listen, I went to this car heaven place We Buy Cars with Henriette to sell the caravans and the jet skis she must now got from the divorce because she's never going onto the Vaal River again, she says. So We Buy Cars bought it from her for a great price. Now, you should tell your husband to sell all of those project cars and take you to the Maldives. Or just give them a call because they come to your house and then they buy your car somewhere so on the spot where they're so gerieflik.
We Buy Cars, the best place to sell your car by far.
Various African outfits will display a great brand of cricket this festive season. Kenya, Ghana and Cameroon will play their hearts out in the East-West qualifier of the BNP Group Africa Cup T20 2023. They will all endeavour to clinch one of 4 remaining spots. This is the journey to the finals of the BNP Group Africa Cup T20 2023. Witness the thrilling action from 5 to 10 December, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
South Africa's Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environmental Affairs have finally granted the car power ship Richards Bay license, a move long awaited, according to the Black Business Council. The Black Business Council saying that it hopes that the decision will significantly boost the country's power generation capacity. The car power ship project will possibly contribute around 6 billion rand to the Richards Bay economic development in KwaZulu-Natal and aims to create job opportunities and improve skills transfer in the region. Naledi Matlapeng has that story.
Turkey's car power ship was granted the environmental authorization for its Richards Bay environmental impact assessment in October. The 20-year project will help to generate more power and reduce the frequency of load shedding. But now Biodiversity Law Centre has lodged an appeal to set aside the issuing of the environmental authorization to car power ship. The BBC says that it supports the minister and the department in granting the license to car power ship and has expressed disappointment by the environmentalists who have lodged appeals against this decision. It says it's aware of the use of the country's courts to frustrate processes and projects.
There's a lot of internationally supported and well-funded environmental organizations that over the time and the period have really been active in objecting and appealing to such applications. And we expected it, and it has actually happened. On the last day of the 20-day period when the appeal can be placed, the environmentalists lodged an appeal on the decision by the Department of Environment. So it was expected, and it actually did happen.
The BBC is optimistic that car power ship will help reduce the prevalence of load shedding in the country and the costs incurred as a result. It says there's a need to balance energy security by combining gas to power alongside renewables.
There is really a strong move to try and hamper any progress that is not within the scope of what they want to see happening. And we have been advocating for at least progress around our energy challenges. And it is made to seem like we don't care about our environment when international organizations are so vehemently resisting what could be progress in our own country. And we are not. We believe that there has got to be a balanced approach to it. And we believe that the decision that the minister has taken as a competent authority is the right one.
The BBC believes car powership will go a long way to help improve the country's energy availability and contribute to stimulating the gas economy to develop and create much-needed jobs. Naledi Matlapeng, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
24 minutes after 3 o'clock, in conversation next with Professor Chris Isike, who's a professor of African politics and international relations at the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria. So the military governments of Mali and Niger have announced plans to end their tax agreements with France within the next 3 months. Mali's tax agreement with France has been in place since 1972, while Niger's deal has existed since 1965. We understand that the tax deals were created to prevent Malian and Nigerian nationals who live in France from paying tax in two countries. The French nationals also benefited from the same agreement. Professor Chris Isike now joining us on the line. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So what's the essence of this tax agreement between France and these two countries, Mali as well as Niger? We hear the issue around the double taxation, but what is it that they were trying to avoid?
Well, good afternoon, Andre, and thank you for having me. I think essentially the purpose of these tax cooperation treaties with France was to prevent citizens of these countries from being taxed in France and vice versa, considering that, with the assimilation policy of the French colonial era, everyone saw France as the final destination, as the El Dorado of civilization for Francophone countries. So that was really the purpose. But what we are beginning to see now with the revocation of these treaties, they help to signal the deteriorating relations between France and Niger on the one hand, and France and Mali and the rest of the most of the Francophone countries on the other hand.
Yeah, and now that they are revoking this agreement, what does it fix? Because if you look at the statement as well that was issued, the statement that was issued by the Mali's foreign ministry, it says that the persistent hostile attitude of France against our state added to the unbalanced character of these agreements, causing a considerable shortfall for Mali and Niger. What exactly is that? What does it mean?
Well, look, these agreements are just appendages of French colonialism in the continent, which were signed sometimes even without the input of the colonies, the former colonies themselves. But they really mean nothing in real terms for people to signal that the relations, like I said, between both countries, in the case of Mali and France and Niger and France, for example, are deteriorating. You remember that even a few days ago, the Niger, for instance, ended a security and defense partnership with the European Union, which France was a big part of, and they have moved to strengthen military cooperation with Russia following this cutting of military ties with security partnerships with the EU. So I think these are just indicators of an attempt, to delink, if you like, from France completely. So any kind of agreement that is between those countries and France, there's a tendency now to begin to take a swipe at them. But in real terms, they would mean they won't mean much on the ground for the ordinary people of these countries and France particularly.
So essentially agitating towards the severing of ties between these three countries, well, Mali and Niger, as well as the relationship with France. What do you think the end goal is?
Well, look, the end goal is to signal. It's like using every weapon, every arsenal you have, you to communicate disapproval, dissatisfaction, or unhappiness with France. So I think that the end goal is to either move away from France completely, delink, or use this as an opportunity or as leverage to negotiate for better deals in terms of, for example, the uranium deal between Niger and France, which of course have been cancelled by the military. But I think the end goal again too is just in case you have a different government in power in the future, to not use these agreements as basis for cooperation that may take them back to in the immediate post-colonial era arrangements. So that for me would be the reason why they are going all out now to sever these ties, cancel all agreements, use the opportunity of frosty relations between France and these countries to just delink and sever this relationship. But I'm sure that the ties that bind these countries are also very deep in terms of economic and sometimes cultural. And many have said that there's a need for many of us in the continent to mentally decolonize ourselves, both socially, culturally, and economically from former colonial masters. And this is particularly so with French colonies. There are many who identify more with the French civilization and culture than their original. So it will be a challenge, if unless there's a complete delinking or there's an understanding between the people, within the people, for why this kind of delinking or renewal of engagements must happen.
Thank you so much for your time, Professor Chris Isike there, Professor of African Politics and International Relations in the Department of Political Science at the University of Pretoria. It's 3:30. It's time for the news headlines with Mudupi Makhalimela. Good afternoon.
This hour, South Africa's youth are not apathetic, but rather stay away from the polls due to their dissatisfaction with government performance, political parties, and democracy in general. Umgeni Municipal Mayor Chris Papas has announced a 100,000 rand reward to anyone with information that can lead to the arrest of the killers of its chief whip, Ndlalayan Sandlovu. And the European Commission has pledged to step up its fight against hate crimes throughout Europe. Details of these and other stories coming up at 4.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good afternoon. Let's go to your sport. And it's soccer as the year draws to a close and the long 2023 Africa Cup of Nations break approaching. Orlando Pirates head coach Jose Rivero is targeting the month of December fixtures to drive a strong campaign in the DStv Premiership.
Train tomorrow, recovery from this game. We have 3 games before Galaxy. Congratulations to Galaxy, by the way, to make the final. And of course also to Stellenbosch, and probably they're gonna come here in a very good mood, with extra motivation as usually when you come to Orlando, and it's gonna be tough, and we want to go game by game, because December is gonna be key for us if we want to finish the year in a proper position, in a position more according with our squad, our capacity to win games. It goes without saying. So we have to apply ourselves in a different level during this month. Is a tricky month, as we all know.
Now, Pirates are left with only 4 matches this year, starting with TS Galaxy this coming weekend, followed by Golden Arrows, then SuperSport United, and the last game on the 29th at home to Stellenbosch FC. Depending on the results of these matches, Pirates can still finish the year in 2nd place. Elsewhere, Manchester United have banned journalists representing 4 media outlets from their pre-match press conference following reports of a dressing room revolt at Old Trafford. Now, representatives from broadcasters ESPN and Sky and the newspapers The Mirror and Manchester Evening were denied access as manager Erik ten Hag planned to preview tonight's home game against Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are managed by Mauricio Pochettino, the man considered ten Hag's main rival for the Old Trafford post in 2022.
If the players have a different opinion, of course I will listen. But they haven't told me. Or, maybe one or two. But it's about, so in general, so the majority, they want to play like this. Proactive, dynamic, brave. That is what they want.
Let's go now to rugby. The Blitzboks and the Springbok Women's Sevens will kick off their HSBC Sevens Cape Town campaigns with two tricky matches before 11 a.m. on Saturday morning at the DHL Stadium. The action starts at 9 a.m. with two matches in the women's competition between Ireland and Brazil, as well as New Zealand and Great Britain. Some clashes will take place simultaneously at neighbouring Hamilton's Rugby Football Club, which is adjacent to the DHL Stadium. The men's competition starts at 6 minutes past 10 in the morning with matches between Samoa, the defending champions in Cape Town, and Australia, as well as New Zealand and Canada. The Springbok Women's Sevens team face France at 10:15 in the morning, and the Blitzboks opening match is against Great Britain at 11:15. And finally, tennis. Caroline Wozniacki was awarded a wild card to the Australian Open as the 2018 champion returns to Melbourne for the first time in 4 years. The 33-year-old retired after the 2020 Australian Open to start a family, but returned to the tour at Montreal in August. The mother of two played her first Grand Slam in 3 years at the US Open and reached the last 16. Wozniacki plans to bring Olivia, 2 and 1-year-old James to the first Grand Slam of the year, and that's from the Miami base she shares with her husband, the former NBA star David Lee. Now, the Australian Open runs from the 14th to the 28th of January, with Arina Sabalenka defending the women's title and Novak Djokovic the men's. We'll bring you more sport on Beyond the Headlines with Sport Headlines top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. Looking okay on Gauteng highways and byways. Actually, just got a little gap at the moment. Things moving along okay. If you're on the Mabopane Highway coming into Pretoria, truck has lost a load of steel pipes or steel of some sort, big long pipes on the Mabopane Highway, just coming onto Eski and Pathali. So there is a little bit of slowdown on your way inbound towards Pretoria this afternoon. Durban's been a wet day today, so please drive carefully. Wet and misty around the upper highway area as well, so extra caution required there. Cape Town, the N1 inbound, the roadworks at Woodstock have finally been lifted. Traffic coming through from the Coburg interchange starting to move and clear, although into that the Coburg Road and Marine Drive coming through to the N1 stay quite heavily backed up. Beautiful scorching day in Cape Town today. So Bantry Bay, Camps Bay along the coast very busy with traffic congestion. And if you're driving parts of the Eastern Cape, just note the N6 is closed currently between Jamestown and Penhook Pass. There's been a collision there involving a Hazchem. I think it's a tanker that's been involved in that crash. There will be some diversions both north and southbound. You probably have to go via Sturkstroom or Dordrecht as your alternative options, and it could be like that for some time. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
Piece of good news for writers out there.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
Dr. Jerry Mufokeng Wamaketa is head judge of the competition.
And you ask the question, who? And I want to say everybody, young, old, black, white.
For a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
It's 23 minutes now before 4 o'clock. Coming up on the show, we'll be in conversation with Mwachisi Sibanda, who is the General Manager for Civic Education and Research at the Electoral Commission, as you just heard now in the bulletin about youth apathy, and their finding is that there is actually no youth apathy, and this is a research that has been conducted by the Electoral Commission as well as the Human Science Research Council. So we'll delve into some of their findings, and then also we speak to the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Togo Titiza, to speak to us about where government stands around the decision that has been taken by the Botswana government to extend the ban on certain fresh produce coming from South Africa.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Aldrin, hi, this is Mont again. For the president to refuse, to divulge the performance of the ministers, I can fully understand. You see, the ANC-led government is not based on these two principles, rule of law and meritocracy. So there's institutional mediocrity, right? In other words, the president knows that those guys are not, and women are not fit for purpose, So incompetence is rewarded, by passing the loot. I can go more and more, but I won't. Good afternoon, Aldrin.
Good afternoon, Aldrin Sampear and a beautiful team of producers. My name is Mpepo Mpireni from Limpopo Mkumbane village. Aldrin, I'm sure you follow well the interviews of all our mayors, our ministers, president, etc., etc. These people managed to brought democracy to our country. All what need to follow, such as building the country, alleviating poverty, changing people's lives, delivering service, it's out of their ability. It is high time for us to change this government now. Another 5 years will be a crisis to us. Aldrin, in 1994, I was 26 years old. Today, I'm 55 years. Life never changed to me and to my children. Till when shall they change this country? Everything is going down to drain, whilst their stomachs are getting bigger and bigger. Thank you so much, Mpepo Mpireni, Limpopo Mkumbane village. Nda.
Good day, Aldrin. The clown from Bloemfontein. I really don't understand if they say now they're going to create another interministerial task team for the state capture report. This president-elect commissions and task team and all this nonsense that's going to waste money again. South Africa, Ramaphosa is clueless. He doesn't know what he's doing. This guy came as a messiah, but now he's turned into something that I don't understand. He's useless, this president. Shame.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Yeah, the task team that's being set up is to build that registry for public servants and officials who have been dismissed for misconduct and so forth, but not necessarily for the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, although, of course, it does speak to what the President's intention is around having a register for people who have been fired for misconduct. So we'll have that conversation a bit later on. Now in conversation with Moagisi Sibanda, who is the General Manager for Civic Education and Research at the Electoral Commission. So earlier on, they hosted a seminar that looked at the findings of a survey conducted, among others, to gauge their perceptions and intentions ahead of the 2024 general elections. And this is the perceptions of young voters, especially. Among the things their research found is that many citizens do not have enough information on how to vote, and they are also unaware of the services provided by the Electoral Commission. Surely this is a huge concern, considering the fact that we are preparing for the 2024 general elections. Moagisi now joining us on the line. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to the SAFM listeners.
So what's the extent of the number of young people who don't know how to vote or have information on how to vote?
So, Aldrin, we have done a survey a few months ago in May, where we did an online survey with about 5,000 young people, And we're particularly looking at young people who are disaffected and disillusioned and really trying to understand the many reasons for why they are saying they will not participate. And we're doing this, Aldrin, specifically to try and see how is it that we can provide the motivation, the answers, and what platforms or strategies we should utilize to get especially the young people on the voters roll and engaging again with our democracy. I think the statistics around how many young people who can be registered, who aren't registered, are already out there. I think the last stats were around 14 million. And it is our wish that all of them really could be registered if we could. But we do have a difficulty, and I think it's a global phenomenon, of this high level of disengagement around young people. And the reasons are trust and disillusionment with the current status quo of the country.
And I see that also being reflected in the level of trust or lack of confidence that young people have in institutions. You look at national government, it is around 23% in 2022, 26% for parliament, political parties at 17%, and the IEC at 40%. And this has been a continuing declining trajectory.
Yes, and it is a trend that we have seen. And because of this lack of trust, it has had that pull-down effect on the trust in the commission itself. However, when we also do our research around the electorate satisfaction with elections themselves, the commission scores very highly, over 80 and 90%, because once people actually experience what it is like to participate in an election, their perceptions begin to change. The research you're referring to, Aldrin, is coming out of our voter participation survey, which is a survey we run about 6 to 8 months ahead of an election to assess voter behavior and voter perceptions, and it influences our planning from an operational point of view, as well as our communications and civic education program, so that we know what it is we're dealing with for that particular election and try and come up with strategies to best respond to the needs of South Africans.
Another interesting one that I found, and this is in that presentation that was delivered by UNISA, also looking into the research by the IEC as well as the HSRC, is that youth believe that voting was pointless.
Yes, people do believe that voting is pointless, and it speaks to the socio-economic conditions that they find themselves in. When people feel that their bread and butter issues have not been responded to, you've seen how dismal our employment statistics are when it comes to young people. So for them, democracy hasn't brought the prosperity that they were promised, and this is what has disappointed them. I think people are really disappointed. The apathy that people talk about is really about disillusionment and disappointment, Aldrin.
Yeah.
But I think people are really yearning to be heard and to see a change. So it's not that they completely don't want to. They're just saying, tell me why I should bother and what difference it will make. And unfortunately, Aldrin, and I often say this, that, technology has gotten us into this culture of instant gratification. And because youth are so tech-savvy and this is the world they grow up in, I think we really need to remind them that democracy really is a long-term journey. Policy work is a long-term journey, and you have to stay engaged in order to see the change. And it's unfortunate that they are dealing with really burning issues that sometimes take away from being part of a long-term, rearing of a baby as a village of South Africans. And it is a struggle that we struggle with at the Commission with the mandate to educate, but I think it should be a common struggle for all of us to speak around engagement and to speak about the misperceptions people have around governance and the electoral process as just a process that is part of a democratic process. It is not the whole thing. So the disengagement also does not serve them, and it's something we really, really need to talk about because it does maintain your status of dissatisfaction.
Yeah. Is there a correlation between the the lack of participation by youth in the elections. And for instance, one of the results from the respondents was that 47% indicated that they found it difficult to find a political party that represents their interests. That's 47%. And that while our stats, unemployment stats show that 43.4% of our youth are unemployed.
The socioeconomic situation is very much related to why people don't want to participate. And they struggle, and some of the reasons the speakers were speaking about today is that they struggling to find a home in political parties that can respond adequately to their needs. And one of the speakers, Professor Schultz, said today that what this creates is mutual neglect, where young people are not participating and are choosing to disengage as their form of agency and activism. But what this creates is that because political parties want to win, they campaign on wanting to win, and they target the population that is most likely to vote, which is the one that is much older than the young people, and therefore they prioritize those policies and messaging that speaks to an elder person, because I want votes and I want. Because campaigning is a very expensive thing. Politics is very expensive. So by not engaging and participating and voicing out and standing up and being candidates, young people's priorities are falling back more and more. So it becomes almost a self-serving, circle, a vicious circle, where young people are disengaging and their priorities are then not being prioritized, and so it goes. And therefore, we really need to urge young people, come into the game. Don't just vote. Become candidates. Put your hand up. And do it as a movement, because really it's about a collective voice.
Well, some people have said, for instance, that perhaps coalitions could reignite a sense of vigor within governance, but also a sense of confidence that people can express in political parties that are in coalition governments. I find it interesting that 60% of the respondents said that the formation of political coalitions would decrease their desire to participate in the elections.
And I think that stems, Aldrin, from what it is that as South Africans they are seeing happening in coalition governments. Because we all know and we've seen that where there are coalition governments, I suppose we call it the party political fighting between the two takes away attention from service delivery. And that is the experience of people, and why they would say that for them, they're not sure. Yes, it creates some plurality, but I don't think we've gotten it right just yet in South Africa to the point or to the extent where it can serve the communities and put the focus on serving the communities. I think that's where the lack really exists right now for South Africans. And that's why young people especially are saying it's not giving them much hope either.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Moagi Sisibanda, who's the General Manager for Civic Education and Research at the Electoral Commission. Are you amongst the 47% of the youth that find it difficult to find a political party that represents your interest, and also the 60% that said that the formation of political coalitions would actually decrease their desire to participate in elections? I actually got a text message here from one of my friends who indicated that her son has indicated that he will not be voting as well. He believes that government does nothing for young people. Are you amongst those people, or perhaps maybe the conversations that you've had with your children about voting and participating in the elections? Here's the thing, though. You can be disillusioned, and it's okay to feel that way, right? It is okay to feel that way. It's a feeling. But then you need to ask yourself, after that disillusionment, then what? What after that? Because the disillusionment is not going to bring about the results that you actually seek for the betterment of your life.
Mamelodi Sundowns and Egyptian outfit Pyramids FC have collected maximum points in their Group A opening matches. They now tackle each other in search of victory. Masandawana want to ensure their visitors walk away without any joy, but Pyramids FC are confident they will upset the 2016 champs. This is the CAF Champions League. Grootgop battles it out with East Cairo. Experience the African flavor of the beautiful game. Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Pyramids FC on Sunday 10 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
8 minutes now before 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, Togo Didiza, as we look at this decision that has been taken by the Botswana government to extend the ban on certain fresh produce that started back in January 2022. So the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Togo Didiza, has raised concerns over Botswana's extension on import restrictions. Didiza says she will seek an urgent meeting with her Botswana counterpart in order to raise her concerns, as she is worried about the negative impact this will have on bilateral trade between the two countries. Recently, Botswana announced that it will extend restrictions on imports of some of the fresh produce to July 2025 as the country is heading towards its self-sufficiency in food production. The Minister now joining us on the line. Minister, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Adrian, and how are you with your listeners?
I'm well, thank you so much, Minister. So when the announcement was made around the ban of certain fresh produce, we were told that the ban will expire in December, the end of this year. But now it has now been extended. Before the extension, was there any consultation that took place between the two countries?
Well, there was consultations within the South African Customs Union when we had the SACU summit in Swaziland this year in June, where as a South African delegation, which included the Minister of Finance, Minister of Trade and Industry, and Minister of Agriculture, we did raise this issue because, as you would appreciate, Adrian, it's not just Botswana. Namibia has also been on an intermittent basis actually blocking off some of the South Africa's fresh produce. And we had raised this concern because, in our view, firstly, there was no enough indication from the two countries as to what are the intentions and how these intentions need to be achieved in a manner that it does not distort trade in the region. But also, when such measures are put, everybody is on board in appreciating the concerns that the other is trying to address and also appreciating what the impact to the other party is going to be. So we've had the bilaterals following that meeting with Namibia when we had our binational, and we're working on how we can actually manage this reality. With Botswana, unfortunately, we've made overtures to request for a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture before. We've not actually got a response. We are working now with the Embassy of Botswana and our embassy in South Africa to really seek this meeting so that we can have a fuller appreciation from the Botswana government as to how are they seeing these measures that they are putting, not being distortive of trade within the region. And this happened when we're all of us looking at improving trade relations within the continent as part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
But when the announcement was made first and it was implemented last year in January 2022, was the minister appraised around what exactly it is that the Botswana government is trying to achieve around their self-sufficient program, food sustainability?
No, there was no prior indication. And actually, even the way the announcement was made, it was already when some of our industries were already stopped at the border.
So what does this then say, Minister, about the relationship between Botswana as well as South Africa if an announcement of this nature is made and the impact that it has, of course, on our farmers? But I remember that it also had a huge impact on Botswana as well, because we covered the story where the price of fresh produce just shot up because there was low supply and there was high demand.
Well, let me say from bilateral relations, our view is that the relations between the two countries remain cordial. And secondly, as South Africa, we do appreciate and that as a result of a number of instruments, particularly your least developed countries would want to create institutional mechanism and support for their farmers in order to be able to produce for self-sufficiency in the country. So there is no doubt about that. We appreciate it because ourselves as South Africa, when we look at measures of supporting our smallholders and our commercial farmers to be able to produce for South Africa to become national food self-sufficient, but also to trade. In the manner in which we do it, one of the issues that we are concerned about is that we shouldn't do it in a manner that does not allow for better trade relations. Because when a country wakes up and say, I'm blocking off from country X these particular commodities for a particular period without having engaged your trading partner, that is a problem. Because then you don't have an appreciation from another party to say, okay, what is the rationale? Because if another party understands your rationale, is able to engage its industry to say, this is the problem that Botswana is trying to address. How do we as neighbors navigate around this reality?
Okay, and finally, Minister, I don't know if you agree with the farmers, but they are arguing that this ban contravenes the Southern Africa Customs Union Agreement. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, my view is that it's not only just SACU, but there are also other instruments in terms of where we participate together with Botswana that relate to the AFCFTA. It also relates to your WTO systems. Yes, Botswana and other countries may argue and say there are, special determinations that are provided for by, the WTO in particular, in order to assist countries to protect their industries as they are developing. And in particular, your least developed countries, of which Botswana is a part, in order to ensure their food security. So they can use that argument. And that's why the posture that we've taken in South Africa is that we do understand the reality. But as neighbors and as trading partners, there are forums around which we can engage to resolve these issues. For instance, in the SACU summit, we agreed that ministers of trade and agriculture on these matters, we need to find one another and see what is the best solution that will assist both countries. So our view is that that's what we still want to work on, because by geography, you can't uproot one from the other. We're both here, and we must find a way in which we are able to work and collaborate together as neighbors.
Okay, and for now, since you've requested now recently another meeting with the Botswana government, have you received any responses yet?
Well, not yet.
Okay. Not yet. Okay, thank you so much. Togo Tidiza there, the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. It's 4 o'clock, time for the news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
The top stories this hour: a survey on voter apathy among SA's youth and a reward offered for the killers of the Umgeni chief whip. A very good afternoon. South Africa's youth are not apathetic, but rather stay away from the polls due to the dissatisfaction with government performance, political parties and democracy in general. This is the finding of a survey by the Human Sciences Research Council ahead of next year's elections. The study has found that many young people are not voting, with the largest levels of disillusionment registered in Gauteng and in KZN. Their belief that their individual vote does not make a difference and the lack of trust in politicians are among the reasons most cited. The Council's Samela Mcingizana, however, says there is hope.
There are two silver linings here. The first is that there is a persistent belief in the importance of voting amongst many youth in our country. Remember, we said close to 60% of our sample said, I do believe that we should vote, but I will not vote anyway. And it's the reasons we just cited across our study right now. And yeah, a sizable minority they still believe it is the duty of of us to vote. So the youth want to vote, but they are dissatisfied by various reasons when it comes to democracy and our governance.
Umgeni Municipal Mayor Chris Papas has announced a 100,000 Rand reward to anyone with information that can lead to the arrest of the killers of its chief whip, Councillor Nkalaya Ndlovu. Ndlovu was shot and killed at Mpophomeni in Howick in the KZN Midlands last night. Addressing a media briefing, Papas says that 10 cartridges were found at the scene. He also shared that Ndlovu had told him prior to his death that he was being threatened. Police spokesperson Robert Netsiwunda.
Police in Mpophomeni have opened a case of murder following an incident in which a 46-year-old man was fatally shot on Tuesday evening, 5 December, at his home in Midmaview, Emerson. Police responded to reports of a shooting, and upon arrival, a man was found lying in a pool of blood with multiple gunshot wounds. It is alleged that the victim was at his home when he was ambushed by unknown suspects who opened fire at him and fatally wounded him at the scene.
A public spat between the ANC and the Durban-based company Ezuluni Investments has taken center stage at a media briefing hosted by Party Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula at Luthuli House in Joburg. Mbalula sought to dispel reports that the ruling party would get liquidated as a result of the 102 million rand debt owed to Ezuluni Investments. The debt comes as a result of the ruling party's 2019 election campaign, in which Ezuluni says it printed posters and banners for the ANC. A recent court order by the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled that the ANC should pay the debt, but the ruling party has since approached the Constitutional Court to try and have the decision overturned. Mbalula says the party will await the decision of the Apex Court on the matter.
I can put my head on the block and no one will liquidate the African National Congress. As the ANC, we are not going to an AI-generated Zulu, artificial intelligence. They've got their case, they've won their case in different platforms. Our biggest worry was to surrender to a fraudulent matter, which will lead the ANC paying millions of rands to something that never happened.
Emotions ran high at the memorial service for the 13 Impala mine workers in Rustenburg in the northwest. One of the family members had to be escorted off stage by medical personnel after being overwhelmed with emotion. Family members of the mine workers broke into tears when gospel singer Lebuso Khobela sang a hymn, Dumelang Ke a Tsamaya, loosely translated as, "Greetings, I am leaving." 11 mine workers died at Shaft 11 last week Monday after the winch rope of a lift that they were in malfunctioned. 2 mine workers died later in hospital. Zebulon Maine has more.
Remembering the loved ones, those who spoke on behalf of the bereaved families say they have not only lost fathers and husbands but breadwinners who were pillars in their families. They say they were not happy with the assistance they got from the service provider who was appointed to keep 11 bodies of their mine workers who died on the scene. The memorial service of the 13 mine workers is still underway. Zebulon Maine, SABC News, Rustenburg.
And the European Commission has pledged to step up its fight against hate crimes throughout Europe. This comes as the ongoing Israel-Hamas war has been fueling anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim incidents across the continent. The Commission says in a statement that it has seen an alarming increase in hate speech and hate crimes among Jewish and Muslim communities. It said it would increase spending on the protection of places of worship, including an increase of €5 million to address threats of rising anti-Semitism. Recapping the top story at 4 o'clock, South Africa's youth are not apathetic, but rather stay away from the polls due to their dissatisfaction with the government performance, political parties, and democracy in general. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemele.
A very good afternoon to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket. Former Proteas captain Faf du Plessis has again stated he's fit and capable of returning to T20 international cricket. And in Formula One, the FIA opens a conflict investigation into Mercedes head Toto Wolff and his wife Susie. All this and more at around 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy backlogs on Joburg's N1 South. Now, there's been a crash between Rivonia Road and the Winnie Mandela off-ramp to Four Ways. Traffic is backed already into the Kloof, and it's marched back up the N1 South through to Yatske River Bridge. So heavy. If you're coming from, say, Allendale Road, Midrand, you want to turn down towards Four Ways. There's some very heavy traffic on the run through today. Durban side, wet and slippery, very misty as well in the inland part, so drive carefully, please. Also watch for a broken down vehicle into north going up towards Mshlanga, so some delays from Kwamashu. Cape Town fairly busy, particularly around the coast. It's around about 31 degrees as we come live to you. So a lot of beach traffic today, particularly Camps Bay, Bantry Bay and Clifton. A lot of traffic going out that way as well on Kloofneck Road. That's very slow through the Tumbers Kloof area. N1 outbound slow towards Platterkloof Hill, and in the Eastern Cape the N6 remains closed probably for some time between Penhook Pass and Jamestown due to a tanker involved in a collision with a Hazchem load on board. So quite extensive detours both directions around that N6 closure. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Get ready for an adventure of a lifetime with SABC TV Licenses Ultimate Competition. Feel the pulse-pounding excitement of a Bundesliga match live on an all-expenses-paid journey you'll never forget. Or embrace the rhythm of your dreams at the Coachella Music Festival. The choice is yours. A football fan's paradise or a music lover's haven. Simply pay your TV license, then head to www.winnerholidaywithsabctvlicenses.co.za for a chance to win big. And don't forget, there are incredible weekly prizes up for grabs too. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Sikukune United target a win in their own backyard against Stade Malien FC. Meanwhile, the Malian side refused to travel back home empty-handed. This is the CAF Confederation Cup Group D clash. Catch Sikukune United versus Stade Malien FC on Sunday 10 December at 8:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10 past 4. 10 past 4. Bah, bah.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
10 past 4 coming up on the show in this hour. We speak to Dr. Tina Nzo, who's a local governance specialist at the UJ and associate of DSO Consulting, as we look at the President's intention to amend the Public Services Amendment Bill to include also a task team that will develop a register to track all public officials across the three spheres of government who have been fired or dismissed as a result of misconduct. We'll be speaking to her about that. I also want to speak about why not extend it to ministers, MECs, as well as MMCs, so that we know that when there's a cabinet reshuffle, the reasons behind the cabinet reshuffle. I find it so strange that sometimes you'll have these cabinet reshuffles that take place and you never get to hear the reasons behind why these people have been removed. Don't really want to say fired, because maybe some of them have been fired, some of them have been removed to a different position within cabinet, but you never really get to hear the rationale behind it. All you hear is that the president or the premier or the mayor has confidence in the people that he has appointed or she has appointed, and that's really where it stops. And once that person has been fired out of cabinet, you still don't know the reasons behind it. But then later on, a new mayor comes in, a premier comes in, a new president comes in, and then you find that the person who was reshuffled, the person who was fired, or the person who was moved is now back in the cabinet, and you don't know what the reason is behind that, because it is the prerogative of the premier, the president, as well as the mayors. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. Remember that we're also streaming live on our Facebook page. Just search for SAFM Radio, as well as our YouTube page as well. We'll be taking your comments from those platforms as well.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
On the banning of fresh produce to Botswana. In this instance, both Botswana and Namibia government are correct. They are showing South Africa that when they decide to make a decision, it stands. Not what South African officials normally do, hoping around the decisions which they have made. South Africa did not take care of its own farmers. They migrated to Namibia and to Botswana, and they are making the better of the economy in those countries. Ganjo.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. It's Wanda from Durban. Aldrin, as a 33-year-old in this country, I won't be voting. For me, I have lost business through the ANC not fixing anything in Durban, and the mayor will come and radio say, oh, everything is fine. A sewer pipe that burst during the last floods, the first March or April floods, is still gushing sewer right through. My 12 bedrooms that I'm renting out are empty today. Are empty. The only source of income I'm relying on right now is my Uber. If I didn't have this Uber, I was relying on those back rooms, I'll be nowhere. I'll be going back and asking for 350. So I don't see for me this thing, because I will never go back for that 350. Yeah. For me, that 350 is not, it's useless. It's only by the 10 kg of maize only.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is so it was, or it is the ANC that is in government in the eThekwini municipality, right? And you're not happy with their services. Why don't you change your vote? And perhaps maybe you won't be able to do it alone. Maybe speak to your peers, speak to the people around you, and ask them whether they are happy with the services that they are receiving. But my point is, guys, maybe there are people who are confident in the ANC, as we've seen the ANC winning elections after elections. This is now speaking about the general election. So there are people who still have confidence in the governing party. But disillusionment is not the answer. Being disillusioned is not the answer. It's a feeling, and you can deal with that feeling, but come back and participate in the elections. And here's the other thing also. I understand that where I'm sitting from a position of extreme privilege, by the way, extreme privilege. Yes, I come from a very poor background. I come from an informal settlement, and I've managed to make it all the way to where I am now. And I always say that I didn't do it alone. There are people who had invested money in me. There are people who had invested their confidence in me. There are people who have put my name forward when I wasn't in the room. And that's the reason why I have propelled to where I am currently. Those people have really helped get me to where I am currently. I am speaking from a position of extreme privilege. I recognize that. But I also do recognize that my vote, as somebody who is privileged, is as equal as your vote as well, as perhaps somebody who is underprivileged. But what do you do then with that particular vote to try and help make your life better, and the people around you, their lives better as well? I fear a time where you have 10% of people who believe in democracy or who believe in participating in the elections. Because even if it is, as the IEC has said before, even if it's 3% of the people on the voters' roll that participate in the election, there will be a government at the end of the day. You could question the legitimacy of that government. However, though, there will be a government and they will be sworn in and they will take the oath of office. And if you're not going to participate in the elections, someone is going to decide on your behalf. You may not have voted for the ANC in the 2019 elections, but the ANC's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is your president as well. It's your president as well. So people will make decisions on your behalf. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. And our studio line is 086 000 2032.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. It's Entle here. I hope you're well. Aldrin, personally, I feel that the KPIs for the cabinet should be made public. The KPIs for people in parliament should be made public. I mean, they are serving us, the citizens. So why are we paying them if we don't know their KPIs? Definitely SAFM knows your KPIs and you know your KPIs. And you do sit down and do your personal appraisal. And they criticize you where necessary. And you get a stretch, a mid, or a ceiling. So when are they doing their personal appraisal? Who gets to do their personal appraisals? Honestly, the KPIs needs to be made public. Keep well, Aldrin.
So Sharon officing was telling me the way drip is so expensive these days. She's now waiting for her old clothes to come back into fashion. I say, Joza, while you're waiting, why not let your money do the things in a Nedbank Just Invest account where you can get your money after 24 hours notice? Oganchani voiceman.
Injalo, Mabel. Earn up to 9% interest. Anyone can open an investment account via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's on the interest rates apply.
Various African outfits will display a great brand of cricket this festive season. Kenya, Ghana and Cameroon will play their hearts out in the East-West qualifier of the BNP Group Africa Cup T20 2023. They will all endeavor to clinch one of 4 remaining spots. This is the journey to the finals of the BNP Group Africa Cup T20 2023. Witness the thrilling action from 5 to 10 December, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
It is 19 minutes after 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Dr. Tina Nzo, local governance specialist at UJ and also an associate at Ndiso Consulting. So President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to amend laws surrounding the public service, that is the Public Service Amendment Bill, in a bid to fight corruption. The government has also set up an interdepartmental task team that will develop a register to track all public officials across the 3 spheres of governance who have been fired or dismissed as a result of misconduct. So far, 12,000 records have been added to the registry. The task team will conduct a review of disciplinary codes and track their criminal cases as well to help us unpack whether these interventions may prove effective and the concerns opposition parties have raised around accountability with ongoing investigations. We are joined by Dr. Tina Nzo. Dr. Nzo, good afternoon and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to your listeners.
What do you make of this intervention? Do you think it is the answer that we need?
Oh, absolutely. It's long overdue, Aldrin, particularly taking into account that we're coming from a very sad, period where we made so many discoveries under the state capture, where we were exposed, to different, cases and testimonies that shows how deep, the role of corruption, the role of, conflict of interest, or should I say lack of management in conflict of interest and patronage really runs through both the political and the administrative spheres of government. So it's quite timely and it's very long overdue.
From looking at what the proposal is from the president, how do you see this one work? And in terms of the tracking as well, just the other day we were speaking to the Public Service Commission, and the question relating to the public officials doing business with government, and they said that they find it difficult sometimes to track these particular individuals and even to stop them even before the tender is awarded. So how would such a system be different and be more effective than what the Public Service Commission is currently facing?
No, that's a very interesting point to make, Aldrin, because in order for you to bring in a system that takes a register of all public officials at the different levels that they are serving in these government institutions, at national and provincial and also at local government level, you've got to support that system with an ICT-based system where you use technology that will draw in data, from your various institutions, both public and private institutions. For example, there are many systems that other organizations are currently now developing out there. I mean, DSO is also thinking about, developing systems similar to these ones, where you draw in data from Home Affairs, from the Department of Justice, from the Police Department, your banks, your deeds office, your CyPro as well, to track, conflict of interest, to track, all these nefarious beneficiation that is happening, around, the ecosystem of your procurement systems that are happening in government. Because public officials, what we have discovered is that they are highly conflicted, particularly when they have, relationships with people who are coming from the private sector who are commissioned, to provide services to government. And that's where you see, all the dubious actions happening behind the scenes. And this is where I think, ICT can play a major role. Having a register only will not help, but you also need a system that will give you real-time data, a system that will, be automated where it can pick up a senior government official who has not declared his interest in the private sector, whether it can be doing business with government or indirectly doing business with government, being represented by a member of family or a friend, or anybody who's tied with this relevant company that's going to be getting a tender.
Considering that the state is the biggest employer, and that is in any other country as well, do you not run the risk as well that perhaps maybe somebody has been fired for misconduct and maybe there's a level of repentance that has taken place? Then you isolate this person and say, because of your conduct, you will never be able to work for the state? Or do you say, because of the conduct as well as the sanctions that were meted out, therefore it means that for the next couple of 5 years, let's say maybe, or even 10 years, you will be barred from working with the state or working for the state?
It's a tough one in the instance that you have to take into account that South Africa is coming from a terrible, terrible regime that has pillaged our state institutions due to corruption. And we've seen very little efforts being made, by the judiciary, by the NPA, to call those to account by actually institutionalizing what we call, your legislative reforms as well, and also making sure that those who are guilty are prosecuted. So one of the ways in which, for example, the local government sector, they have tried by introducing the Municipal Systems Amendment Act, which was introduced around 2011 and 2012, where a certain clause had given the MEC for cooperative governance in a particular province to actually bar municipal managers from becoming municipal managers in another municipality if they were been found guilty of being involved in corruption or maladministration or malfeasance. But then, this bill proposed that this, individual who had been found to be guilty of such should be barred for about 10 years. But then one of the things in which we also have to look at is the extent to which corrupt activities have had an impact on the state institution. Because remember, if you are actually the accounting officer of a national, provincial, or local government sphere of government, and you have been involved in taking away taxpayers' money by allocating it to a service provider who doesn't provide the clinic, who doesn't build a road, who doesn't, build a school, who doesn't provide the water services, like, for example, like what we had in the city of Tshwane happening, then it means that you are actually negating what we have to stand for in the Constitution under the Bill of Rights. So this is very serious, and we have to take it very serious in the sense that we don't find individuals rotating around the system by actually, getting away, with impunity from facing their legal, deviations that they've made in the system. So it's very important that we need to think about that if we want to look at the various extents which individuals commit corruption.
Do you think it's possible to extend something like this to the political deployee? Speaking about the political head of a department, for instance, whether it is an MEC, MMC, or even a minister, because we know with their appointment, it is the prerogative of the president, the mayor, or the premier. But sometimes you find that some of those officials or some of those ministers had been fired before. But we don't know why they were fired because that information is not revealed to us. It's not being made public.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it would take us a further step in dealing with the political, unethical behavior and corruption, and also, conflict of interest that certain political leaders have who are leading certain departments in the various spheres of government. And of course, we do know that in the National Assembly, at Parliament, if you find that a minister has been implicated, in a corruption scandal, of course, they have to go through the ethics committee, where the ethics committee will obviously make an investigation and also go through SCOPA as well. But it's not enough, because prosecutions is something that, provides public confidence in a public system where citizens are concerned that our governance and compliance systems are not being adhered to, particularly those whom we elect to become political leaders. We provide them, with a sense of confidence of saying that you will look after the public purse, you will protect the public purse. But then if you find incidences like these, they contribute towards the lack of trust and the trust deficit that we are finding ourselves into. So yes, taking it to that level would be most beneficial for society. But again, this is something that will need to be engaged at the public, assembly, where you get certain contributions coming from the different stakeholders in society.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Tina Nzo, there, local governance specialist at the UJ and also an associate of Ndiso Consulting. 0614 104 107. Let's take some of your voice notes.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Hi, Aldrin. I think voters, those who don't want to go and vote, need to be educated that not going to vote is not going to change the situation. Things will just get worse. They need to go and vote for a different party to the ANC so that they can bring a different party into power, which will change their situation for the better. Because if they don't go and vote, nothing is going to change. Things will just get worse, and we'll end up with the result like in Zimbabwe. Thanks, Farai.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Yeah, just listening to some of the callers talking about the KPIs and people talking about the farmers and things like that. I don't know who does the KPIs, but I mean, those ministers are so protected, it's just not funny. There should be a department with equal representation by all the parties doing KPIs on the cabinet ministers, because of course they report to Parliament. The courts are used too much. Everything is in dispute. The EFF raid the stage, and now they want to go to court and everything like that. Botswana is cancelling their trade with us. France is no longer giving us investments until we sort out stability and a whole lot of things and everything. I mean, where does it end? Because the rest of Africa are starting to lead us. I mean, come on,
On X, Oyama saying that, hi Aldrin, it's not factual to say that there are some people who still vote for the ANC. You should say or you should be saying the vast majority of the people vote for my ANC. Yes, and you are correct. It is the vast majority in comparison to the votes that are received by other political parties. It's a minute after 4:30. Time for the news headlines with Mudupi Makhalimele.
Very good afternoon. With the news headlines, the Zimbabwean government has dismissed South Africa's Border Management Authority statement that buses full of children arrived at a border checkpoint in Musina. South Africa's youth are not apathetic, but rather stay away from the polls due to their dissatisfaction with government performance, political parties, and democracy in general. And a 26-year-old traditional healer who was raped allegedly by her male client says the ordeal has left her in shock and in fear. Greg has your full update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, we stay heavily backed up on Joburg's N1 going south. It's a collision before the Winnie Mandela Drive exit to four ways. It has been cleared, but it's left a queue right back to Buccleuch and right up towards the Yatske River Bridge on the N1 south. So mid-round down to four ways under pressure. Also the Mike 1 today, very heavy from Melrose all the way through towards the Boysons area. N1 north just under some pressure as far as New Road. It does ease after that. Chwani had a good run through this morning and it's got a pretty good run through this afternoon as well. No major problems to report in on there. Traffic a little bit on the light side, actually. Pietermaritzburg down to Durban, that looks fine both ways. You've got the usual queues going through Spaghetti Junction, though, the N2 north to the M13 and the N3 rams onto that N2 north into the roadworks very slow. A lot of traffic pressure around central Cape Town today. Routes like Helen Suzman coming in to a very busy Baton truck going outbound to the elevated freeway. That's all very slow. And a reminder of the closure around the Eastern Cape, the N6 between Jamestown and Penhook Pass, closed going forward probably for a few more hours due to a Hazchem truck crash and incident. There will be a long detour to clear that N6 closure. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to it. Let's start with cricket news. We've got the former Proteas captain Faf du Plessis again stating he's fit and capable of returning to T20 international cricket. Earlier this year, the new Proteas limited overs coach Rob Walters said he will be open to discussions with du Plessis about possibly reviving the 39-year-old's international career. Du Plessis retired from Test cricket 2 years ago, but is still available for T20I selection. He was overlooked for both the 2021 and 2022 T20 World Cup squads by the selectors, despite excelling in T20 leagues around the world. Staying with cricket, the Proteas women will be in action again tonight at 6 p.m. They'll face Bangladesh and Kimberley in the second T20 International. South Africa will be looking to draw level in the series after losing by 13 runs during the first game of the series that took place on Sunday at Willamore Park in Benoni. The Proteas ladies have received a major boost with the return of their captain, Laura Wolfart, following her commitment with the Adelaide Strikers in the Big Bash League in Australia. Let's go to soccer news now. Andisiwe Mngcoe ensured that Mamelodi Sundowns ladies will secure their third successive Hollywood Bet Super League title as they defeated TS Galaxy Queens 1-0 at the Lucas Moripa Stadium this afternoon. The result sees Sundowns in pole position with 75 points on 28 matches, equal in points with the University of Western Cape. That's in second place, who have already wrapped up their campaign, but with an inferior goal difference. This means Sundowns cannot be caught with 2 matches in hand. Staying with soccer, as the year draws to a close, the long 2023 African Cup of Nations break approaching, Orlando Pirates head coach Jose Rivero has targeted the month of December fixtures to drive a strong campaign in the DStv Premiership. A strong second-round performance is not something new to Rivero's Pirates team. They did it last season. It was a show of force as Bucks collected maximum points from a possible 45. They won 11 matches, lost only 2, and they drew 2 from 15 matches. With no CAF interclub commitments, Rivero knows they can still launch something from here after beating Morocco Swallows 2-0. Let's listen now to the Bucks coach, Jose Rivero.
but it's an exercise of responsibility from us to do everything in order to make it. We are not in control of the results, like we used to say, but we are in control of what we do before the games and in our preparation and in our concentration and in our confidence. And this game, I think, is gonna be good in that sense. We are now in a, let's say, in a good form. I think we are now in how many? 10 points out of 12, the last 12, which is a good thing, and we want to continue, but the only way to do it is game by game.
And finally, the governing body of Formula One racing is investigating Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff and his wife Susie, who heads the F1 Academy, following allegations of a conflict of interest and whether they had shared confidential information with the commercial rights arm of the Global Series. In a short statement, the FIA said it's aware of media speculation whether confidential information was exchanged and that its compliance department is looking into the matter. The probe comes after a report in Business F1 magazine that rival team executives raised concerns about whether Toto and Susie Wolff passed on information discussed in private meetings. Susie Wolff is managing director of the all-female series F1 Academy and reports to the F1 chief executive Stefano Domenicali. We'll have more of these and other stories here on Beyond the Headlines with Sports Headlines, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Forthright and hard-hitting, Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Sometimes you'll think he's personal in approach. Well, the guy is just doing his job. Hashtag don't take it personal.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for a market update with Marco Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Marco Fund Managers. Marco, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Let's look at Tarisa's yearly trading statement.
Afternoon to you, Adrian, and to the listeners. So these guys, they mine PGM and chrome, and they run more of a mechanized open pit operation. And unfortunately, they were impacted by lower PGM basket prices, but realized higher chrome concentrates prices. And one of their projects, the Karoo Platinum Project development timeline, has been revised, and all because of the weak PGM prices and also a volatile macroeconomic conditions. So they expect the profits, etc., and earnings per share to decrease by 33%.
And tell us about local and international market developments.
Aldrin, yesterday the U.S. Treasury Secretary said economists who predicted that high unemployment will be needed to tame inflation are now eating their words as the economy experiences little weaknesses in the labor market and consumer demand, with prices moderating, and we are not seeing the usual signs of a weakening labor market that will make one fear a recession. And there's a drop when it comes to bond yields, and that's on deepening confidence that the major central bankers will stop tightening interest rates, and investors need to gauge if central banks may soon start to retreat from a period of aggressive policy tightening. And the recent economic data has reinforced investors' convictions that rates may soon start to fall, and oil prices continue to fall as investors weigh the effectiveness of an extension when it comes to the OPEC Plus supply cuts, and that's against a worsening demand outlook from China. We see Brent crude is down 1.7% at $75 a barrel, and lower bond yields are lifting the yellow metal. Gold is up 0.5% at 2029, platinum also up 0.5% at 906. The Dow is up 0.4%, S&P is up 0.5%, the DAX, just like the FTSE, up 0.6%, CAC up 0.7%, with the JSE up 0.5%, and our resources are up 1.3%, financials up 0.6%, but our industrials are down 0.1%, and the rand is 18.84 to the US dollar, 23.72 to the pound, and 20.31 to the euro.
Thank you so much. That's Marco Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Marco Fund Managers.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Let's take your calls on 086 000 2032. You can also drop me a voice note on 0614 104 107 and X at Aldrin Sampear, and a comment on our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page as well, where we are streaming live. I love this exchange on X between Pash or Pash Hash or Pash Hash and SS Zonge. So Pash Hash tweets, fact that most people, youth included, abscond from voting exposes the opposition's ability to campaign. They can't just rely on the ANC's shortcomings for votes. They can't just rely on the ANC's shortcomings for votes. For me, the tweet or the X speaks about where do we locate the responsibility of the opposition or also the intention of the opposition to actually govern at some point. And do they question themselves, do introspection around why it is that whatever it is that they are offering is not resonating with the voter. But SS Zonke brings in another perspective. He goes on to say, that's like blaming people not using condoms or taking medicine on doctors or the scientific community not communicating despite the millions of hours and billions spent to educate people. Non-voters have agency and choose not to use one of the few powerful tools at their hand. And that's the truth. Non-voters have agency. You do have agency. It can't stop at, there are too many political parties, or there are too many political parties, I don't know which political party to vote for, or I believe that all the political parties are the same. You have agency, and you need to exercise that agency as the individual voter. And you can't really say that I blame the opposition for me not participating in the elections or our electoral process. And I totally agree also with the phrase of one of the few powerful tools at hand, and that is a vote. Unfortunately, for some people, it has meant it hasn't resulted in the type of change that they have that they voted for. 0614-104107. Your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
It's the celebration of the century, and you're invited. We've already given away almost 3 million rand with 56 daily vouchers won. Buy a new Ford before 31 December, and you could win a 50,000 rand voucher or the grand prize of us paying for your new Ford. Visit your nearest Ford dealer today. TNCs apply.
Eintracht Frankfurt plans to have things their way when they clash with the giants of German football Bayern München. They believe a win is more exciting on home ground, while the Bavarians are gunning for strictly 3 points to settle at the top of the table. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the superb contest between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern München on Saturday 9 December at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Afternoon, Andren. This is Magdalene from Bloom.
Liratodi, good afternoon.
Aldrin, how are you?
Let's hear from Tandisa joining us from Matlosana. Good afternoon.
Edwin, how are you?
Aldrin.
Who?
It's Aldrin.
What? Excuse me. My name is what? My name is my name is my name is what? My name is
Aldrin Sampear.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
My name is what? My name is who? My name is what? My name is who? My name is Aldrin Sampear.
My daughter is loving Aldrin Sampear. Enjoy your show, man.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali. The 16 Days of Activism for No Violence Against Women and Children campaign. This year, be an activist. Play your part. Do not protect abusers. Report them. Hashtag no to GBVF.
SAFM leading the conversation.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
0614-104-107, your ex at Aldrin Sampear, and your comments on our Facebook as well as our YouTube pages where we are streaming live from. And you can also give me a call on 086 000 2032. Let's go to Soweto Mbuyiswa. Good afternoon.
Yes, hi, Aldrin. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm okay, man. So, Aldrin, I want to speak on this topic, man, you're speaking of. I'm here driving with my girlfriend going somewhere, and I'm busy asking her whether she had registered or not. She tells me that she hasn't registered, and and then she says to me she likes the EFF. And I asked her, why then do you like the EFF on paper or through just talking? Why don't you go and register so that you vote? She's 22, Aldrin, and I don't think she'll vote. But anyway, I'll encourage her to go and register to vote.
Are you with her now?
Yes, I'm with her.
Do you mind putting her on the line? She doesn't have to reveal her name. She doesn't have to reveal her name.
You don't have to reveal your name and just say hi.
Don't reveal your name. It's okay. I just want to know, or maybe you can ask her the question, Mbuyiswa. I just want to know, why is it that she loves the EFF, but she doesn't register to vote for the EFF?
Aldrin, I don't know why. But why? Kuluma Ngobile. I've revealed your name. Aldrin, she's shy.
Ngobile is shy. Okay, maybe you guys can have the conversation, and I'm loving that you're actually having the conversation in the car while driving. But Mbuyiswa, you are registered to vote.
I'm registered, Aldrin. Let me tell you who I voted for. Do you want me to tell you?
No, you don't have to, but if you want to, that's fine.
Let me tell you. Okay, I voted for the PLF. The last time I voted for the ATM. Thanks, Aldrin.
And next year you will still be voting?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And please encourage Ngobile Lapene as well to vote. Thank you. Mbuyiswa there from Soweto. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. And our studio line is 086 000 2032. Your comments on Facebook as well as our YouTube page. Just quickly on X, Patle saying that South African youth is extremely lazy, oblivious and ignorant. Voting is but part of the broader aspect of one's education, awareness and understanding, political, social and economic activism in the context of South Africa's justice. That government does nothing for them is here nor there, or it's neither here nor there. And that's the point. You need to participate in our electoral process. But the point that has been made before also is that not participating in the elections is also a form of protest. But what do you achieve from that form of protest?
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Nelson Mandela was a global icon. He was a hero in our country. But we are in this trouble just because of his people. And I'm really worried about the people who say they are not going to vote, because this is telling me that there is a lack of voter education in South Africa. It seems as they don't know why they must vote, because if they knew that, they were supposed to vote ANC out. Mukans Cash Nandambi Village. Thanks.
Good day, Aldrin and the listeners. Talking about KPIs for those in Parliament, just a question. KPIs for MECs and that of HODs, head of departments, how does it differ? And can MECs involve themselves in the hiring and firing of hospital staff? Just need to find out if a listener can assist me with that. Thank you. Bye.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
If I'm not mistaken, they're not allowed to get involved in operational matters, but I could be wrong. If there's anyone else, perhaps, who knows, I don't think that an MEC gets involved with the appointment of staff, right? Right? Or maybe I'm wrong. You can give us a call on 0614-104-107. That is a voice note, and a call on 086-000-2032. Let's move over to this story next. Bernadette Bule, who is a marketing and communications manager at JA South Africa, is now joining us on the line. They have partnered with Google's charitable arm and Zurich Foundation, which have launched the JA Career Connect, which is a new cloud-based platform designed to connect young African talent with employment opportunities across the globe. Bernadette, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Thank you so much for having us.
Why are you contributing to the brain drain?
No, man, that's not what we're trying to do. What we're actually trying to do is, finish off the ecosystem. I mean, our core offerings is work readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. And we provide training in that in those three areas. And what we're actually saying is that we're finding a lot of our young people actually do quite well when they access the work environment. And we wanted to create a platform that will help them connect with recruiters and help recruiters connect with junior achievement alumni or junior achievement program participants, because they really do stand head and shoulders above the rest.
So what is it that you're trying to address here with this initiative?
We're really trying to address the unemployment rate on the country as well as on the continent. I mean, 11 million people across Africa enter the workforce annually, right? And they're just competing for 3 million jobs. That talks to a shortage in terms of the work, and it talks to, the economic shortfalls that a lot of our economies have. And what we're saying is that let's also address that. Let's prepare the young people for the future. But if we're going to prepare them, let's also connect them to opportunities. We already provide them training with work readiness. We already provide them training in terms of entrepreneurship. And what we actually find is a lot of young people that go through our entrepreneurial programs, about 44% of them actually go and pursue further education. That already talks to us addressing the needs group, which is you're not in employment, education, or training, because now we are addressing a problem at the root instead of, trying to address the symptom after they've either not completed matric or are too old to want to go back to school and are now finding themselves in an economic rut and want to get back into the workforce.
And with the job opportunities specifically, is it job opportunities that require them to actually leave the country, or do you mix that up with job opportunities where you're able to work virtually from wherever you are?
You're able to work virtually from wherever you are. What we're trying to say, we're not trying to do the brain drain as you initially talked about, but we are saying there are recruiters in South Africa that are looking for JA positioned alumni. And we're saying here's a platform where you can find some of our top alumni who have done great things. You're able to see their CV, they're able to prepare a video, you're able to engage them. And we really make sure that that recruitment process is streamlined, right? There's smart candidate recommendations where it actually says, it matches you to people that would work very well for the job that you require, because you would put in keywords and say, we're looking for someone who's creative, someone who's proactive. And our platform allows you to actually join the dots and connect to the top alumni that would work very well for your organization, be it in South Africa or any of the 16 countries where JA Africa is, right?
And people who participate with JA Africa or have participated, the alumni that you're speaking about, are you able to track what their contribution to society has been beyond after they've received the qualification or after they've received the placement? Because I think that contribution also speaks to a broader goal that speaks to how do we uplift societies. And we know, for instance, one person finds a job, that means that that person is able to influence the trajectory or even the lifestyle of their immediate families.
100%. We really want to provide our young people with the skill set and the mindset to build a thriving community, right? And I love that question because it talks to some of the people that I can address that you would know and the general public would know. You know, the Gauteng Premier of Upanyazi Lisufi is an alumni of JASA. Andile Kumalo, who's the founder of I Am Entrepreneur, is an alumni of Junior Achievement, right? So those are the type of the caliber of people that we produce, and many more. I mean, in South Africa alone, we have an alumni of over 600,000. In Africa, it's even larger. So those are the type of people that we go with. This particular platform is geared to 18 to 25-year-olds because they're really now starting to get into the workspace. But if you want to talk about a legacy and you want to talk about young people that have gone through the programs, the names that I talked about are some of our alumni.
And people who want to be part of the JA Africa and some of your programs that you have, tell us what you have on offer and how they can join and be part of this initiative.
Sure. So in Junior Achievement South Africa, you're able to connect with us on our website, which is jasa.org.za. For the JA Career Connect, it is mycareerconnect.org. And we're really trying to say, if you've been through a JASA program, and that's how we call it locally, everyone knows it as JASA or Junior Achievement South Africa, connect with us. These are opportunities that are for free. We have funders that actually fund this. And as you mentioned, Google.org, Z Zurich Foundation have come on board as partners. And what we're saying to young people, we want to give you that access. So come on board, check out our website, connect with us on our social media platforms if you want to go through a program, or if you're a recruiter and really trying to tap into this pool of young people. At this time, we're connecting with alumni, but in the next year after our pilot, we're opening it up to the African market outside of just South Africa and outside of the 16 countries that we operate in Africa.
Just a quick final one, Bernadette, as we conclude. With the programs that you currently offer, do you at all look at, for instance, companies or startups and so forth, and around their understanding of the world of work and how the world of work is changing and what you have been able to unearth from your research?
100%. We actually have a program called the Company of the Year, or the Youth Enterprise Development Program, that is geared to high school learners at enterprise program level and then youth at out of school level. And what we've been able to do is really streamline the understanding of running an enterprise, because a lot of people think, you know, when I get into business, I can mix my personal finances with my business. They go through our program, an intensive program that also gives them access to markets and prepares them to actually say, look, I wasn't really doing business the way I wanted it. I'm really happy that I've learned so much. We've actually got our Company of the Year competition happening now in Rwanda, where we've sent a team of 3 young people who won nationally and are competing in Rwanda. And what they would be able to create is a cable protector. And they did this with 3D printing. So that talks to how young people are really thinking, and we're really nurturing that mindset for them to not just look at it as you're going to go and work. What about seeing entrepreneurship as an alternative as well, right?
Thank you so much, Bernadette, and well done on the work that you're doing. Bernadette Bulede, Marketing and Communications Manager at JA South Africa, or JASA, as they call it.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Let's quickly go to Anonymous, who's joining us from Gauteng. Good afternoon.
Aldrin, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How's it?
Cool, man. Let me respond to that one of saying, do the MECs have the power to infiltrate, not to appoint? The truth remains to say, in terms of Public Service Administration, Public Service Act, and the rest of its counterpart, that indeed they don't have a leg to do the appointment. But unfortunately, in the era of life where we are currently, believe you me, MECs in most of the department are making a dictation. They even have a statement that they usually use to utter, whereby they say, I cannot hunt with somebody's dogs. Those are the kind of utterance, Aldrin. I believe what I'm saying is what is commonly known. And it's a common cause of corruption. You know, the moment you start to hear an utterance of that kind of a sentiment.
And this is not speaking about the advisor, right?
It's not the advisor. I mean, believe you me, it's a common the only common cause of corruption is when political heads
are infiltrating in administration. And, it is very painful because the manner in which they infiltrate in terms of appointing people with authority, like, for an instance, director supply chain, corporate services. Those are the kind of positions that, indeed, you will find a political leg within administration.
Anonymous, thank you so much for that call. Anonymous there joining us from Gauteng. Any personal experience from your end with regards to political heads getting involved in the appointment of government officials? It's 5 o'clock, time for the news with Greg Host. Good afternoon, Greg.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Good afternoon and thank you, Aldrin. In this news update, Zim denies children border statement and concern over young voters. The Zimbabwean government's dismissed the statement by South Africa's Border Management Authority that buses full of children arrived at a border checkpoint in Musina in Limpopo. Border officials say they intercepted 42 buses carrying 443 children under the age of 8 at the border post. Zimbabwean Home Affairs Minister Kazembe Kazembe.
We wish to categorically state that no such incident occurred. If at all there was a case of human trafficking of minors, the buses, the drivers, and the crew would now have been arrested, facing human trafficking charges as guided by the Trafficking in Persons legislation common to both jurisdictions, in line with our regional and international obligations.
South Africa's youth are not apathetic, but rather stay away from elections due to their dissatisfaction with government's performance, political parties, and democracy in general. This is the findings of a survey by the Human Sciences Research Council ahead of next year's elections. The study has found that many young people believe that their individual vote doesn't make a difference, and the lack of trust in politicians are also among the reasons most cited. Researcher Samele Mtingizane.
There are two silver linings here. The first is that there is a persistent belief in the importance of voting amongst many youth in our country. Remember, we said close to 60% of our sample said, I do believe that we should vote, but I will not vote anyway. And it's the reasons we just cited across our study right now. And yeah, a sizable minority, they still believe it is the duty of us to vote. So the youth want to vote, but they are dissatisfied by various reasons when it comes to democracy and our governance.
The bail application in the trial of the alleged mastermind in the Cyril Ramaphosa Phala farm burglary has been adjourned to tomorrow at the Bela Bela Magistrates Court in Limpopo. The accused and two others face charges of theft and burglary of more than $500,000 at the president's farm in 2020. One of the accused, who's the alleged mastermind, is facing additional charges of money laundering. Renaya Ramawada reports.
During his bail application, the accused has told the court that he has handed over his passports and will not skip the country to evade justice. He also told the court that he has family members who rely on him for financial support. The state has opposed bail. The investigating officer is also expected to testify. Emanuela David has been remanded in custody until Thursday. The investigating officer is expected to continue on the witness stand when the case resumes.
Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane has called on law enforcement authorities to work harder to fight lawlessness that has been reported from initiation schools in the province. This follows the fatal shooting of 3 brothers at an initiation school in the province. The Premier's spokesperson is Yango Funani.
As the province, we are disheartened with all these negative developments surrounding our initiation schools. Premier Mabuyane is sending out condolences to families who have lost their sons while undergoing the sacred rite of passage of traditional male circumcision. We are strengthening our monitoring systems through our ward-based initiation forums, community development workers, and we are working close with our traditional leaders to curb these incidents.
Economist Wandile Seklobo says the outbreak of disease among livestock has been a significant contributor to the underperformance of the agricultural sector in the third quarter. Economic activity in this sector declined by almost 10%. Seklobo explains.
This, of course, was a surprise to us because we had thought that the robust field crop would be able to support the growth and performance of the sector for some time. But it appears that the difficulties that we experience within the livestock and the poultry subsector undermined the performance of the sector. For example, we've been struggling with animal diseases, foot and mouth disease in cattle industry, African swine fever in pigs, and avian influenza in poultry. And I think the difficulties that these subsectors of our agricultural sector experience is what led to this underperformance.
The top story, the Zimbabwean government's dismissed a statement by SA's Border Management Authority that buses full of children arrived at a border checkpoint in Musina. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
And I'm Zai Khan. Let's get to your sports headlines. It's Mamelodi Sundowns who travel to face AmaZulu at Moses Mabhida Stadium tonight, while the Mamelodi Sundowns ladies have successfully defended their Hollywood Bet Super League title following their 1-0 victory over TS Galaxy Queens. All this and more at around 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Load shedding across the northern parts of Joburg today from Sunninghill, Rivonia down through Paulshof, Machali's and into Four-Way. So lots of delays on lots of routes out that way. Malabongwe drive through North Riding is quite heavy. Plenty of traffic light problems that side as well. The Mike 1 South is a bit of a standout. Queues from Glenhove Road all the way through the Crown down towards Boysons before you're out of that. Some pressure at the Dustport Tunnel if you're going north. There is some load shedding in the Claremont and Boyson side of Pretoria at peak hour. That always causes delays on Bremer and Thunderhof. So if you're lining up through the tunnel wondering what's going on, we think it's that load shedding issue. A lot of truck congestion again around the Richards Bay area, so just watch that. There's some queuing pressure on Durban's N2 South moving through Mhlanga down towards KwaMashu, and a collision scene up by Sibaya. So if you're heading up towards the airport, once you get north of Mhlanga, that all gets very heavy. A lot of traffic on Cape Town's Atlantic Seaboard, Clifton through to Camps Bay, jam-packed on Victoria Road. It's a nice warm beach-going day. So a lot of traffic on the beach and a lot more going out there on Kloof Neck Road. That's all jamming up through Tamberskloof. And very busy coming into Cape Town from the waterfront and Greenpoint. Routes like Strand Street coming in, Helen Suzman and Dock and Port Road, leaving the waterfront jammed in towards the city centre. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
And welcome to BTH Idols.
My name is Dileka Mabuya from Port Elizabeth, Walma, and I'm going to be singing a song called Lord, I thank you for sunshine. Lord, I thank you for sunshine. Thank you for rain. Thank you for joy. Thank you for pain. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It's 8 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up on the show in this hour, we speak to Gregory Mufokeng, who's the Vice President of the Black Business Council. Earlier today, the Public Service Commission revealed in its quarterly bulletin between July as well as September that outstanding bills that have been amassed by government stand at around 4.7 billion rand to around money. This is now money owed to around 36,000 invoices and that have not been paid after the 30 days from the date of issue. So we'll be speaking to Gregory Mufokeng around this. Perhaps maybe you've done business with government as well. Did you receive your money on time? Some people frown when you say like, oh, you want to do business with government. Better make sure that you have some liquidity, because chances are that you won't get your money within the 30 to 60 days after you have after you've now filed your invoice. And then after that, or before that, we speak to Duncan McFadden, who is the Head of Research and Conservation at the Oppenheimer Generations, currently at the COP28 in the UAE, as we look at some of the key discussions in deliberations around the financial viability of climate solutions.
Going beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. I think to vote should be made a law, that people are compelled to vote. Whether they spoil their vote or whatever the case may be, they should be compelled to vote and be compelled to make a decision. I think indecisiveness is one of the worst things. It keeps a person in a position where they are and they just can't change and, change the status quo. If they actually made decisions to move forward in life, then you at least can say, oh, I've learned from that wrong decision, or wow, that was the best decision I made. But people don't want to make decisions because they think they're going to make a mistake. Just do it. You can always change it in 5 years' time.
Yeah, but what's the penalty if you're going to make voting compulsory by law? What's the penalty? Our prisons are already running over. So what happens if the person decides not to vote and not to participate in the electoral process?
My name is My name is My name is Aldrin Sampear.
Hello, Adrian. Ushameni Pretoria. Pretoria. Excited kanjani. Anyways, hi, akusiyi imini lo ngigijima ngiyobheka Facebook when I heard you saying you're broadcasting live. Ngitshela ukuthi phela mina nenza ama-vid kanti ha. Anyways, yeah, guys, angisanazi. Hope all is good, all is right. Yeah, December, Rider.
With all of that energy and the kids there in the background. Thank you so much for that voice note, Shemaine.
Yeah, then I just want to leave one comment. People that did not register to vote for the 2024 elections must really, really reconsider to go out and register for next year, because it's a very important year for us. If we want to see change in South Africa right now, they must go out and register. When there's a
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
It is 12 minutes after 5 o'clock. In conversation next with Duncan McFadden, who is the head of research and conservation at the Oppenheimer Generations, who's currently attending the COP28 in the UAE, which is entering its final days. One of the key discussions in the deliberations is the financial viability of climate solutions, given the barriers facing the global south. Our next guest argues that technology transfer will play a key role in protecting livelihoods, building new innovative renewable solutions, and safeguarding natural resources. And Duncan is now joining us on the line. Duncan, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon. It's great to be on your show.
Yeah, with the innovation and technology that is required, and also, I guess, speaking about the global south being independent when it comes to the development of such technology and innovation, also comes the demand of money, because research requires money.
No, absolutely, and I think some of the main thrusts coming out of COP is that we need to look at new technology. The global north needs to pay for the greenhouse gas emissions, and that they are the main culprits. And we are at a 2%, only facing the brunt of it. I certainly feel, and the big story coming out of COP here is that fossil fuels need to be a thing of the past. And we need to look at green technologies, and we need to focus on green energy. This COP is interesting. It's actually, I've been to COPs before, but there's a balance here between negative and doom and gloom, but also positive tipping points, and how technology can move Africa into a leading position in this space.
And looking at some of the money that has been pledged so far, the host United Arab Emirates said that more than 83 billion rand has been mobilized during the past first 5 days of COP28. But then the other question then becomes around how the global south get access to that money. We're having a conversation not so long ago with our international news editors, and I remember during COP27, one of the arguments that was put forward is South Africa really a poor country? South Africa a developing country? And should South Africa actually qualify from the money that is being mobilized, especially with that criteria around poorer nations?
I mean, it's a very good question, but South Africa certainly should qualify. I think we're all feeling the pinch. Not only are we in the midst of a serious energy crisis, but we are experiencing huge temperature fluctuations. I think we can all agree that South Africa, I mean, it was in the hottest November in ever. And I think the drier areas are becoming drier and hotter. And then on the other side of the continent, we're getting flooding and storms. I was in Madagascar a week or two back, and they're having extreme cyclones. So South Africa, Southern Africa is feeling the brunt of global north emissions, and that's been coming a long, long time. And we certainly should qualify. Whether the money is being paid over, I mean, that's one of the big discussions here. Finance to enable developing countries to really take grasp and control of their situations. It's often the poorest of the poor that are actually really feeling the brunt of this. Middle to top earning individuals and companies, they can afford, these to keep abreast of it. But I mean, it's the poorer communities that really, really battle. I attended a meeting this morning with the Minister, Barbara Creasy, and some really exciting developments coming out of South Africa with the Just Energy Transition Jet, which is really looking at renewable energies, looking at involving communities and making sure communities have a say in what happens in their world. And the implementation plan was launched, and it seems really, really feasible. But again, it's going to need big money. I mean, they're talking $1 trillion to make this happen, and that money has to come from somewhere.
The money has to come from somewhere. Would it only be the Global North that will be financing these projects, or do we expect money to come from the Global South as well?
And that's, again, a great question, because that was one of the questions one of the comments I put forward this morning. And that is, again, we certainly need funding from the Global North, but that doesn't get the Global South off the hook. Governments certainly need to commit. Our government needs to commit into this initiative jet. I think where they're putting, their money where their mouth is. Again, private business and big business in South Africa needs to contribute. I mean, the positive side of this is there are many positive tipping points, and where they're in reach. But the negative tipping points are huge, and really it's going to impact business, it's going to impact communities, it's going to impact biodiversity. And if we don't, by 2030, keep the temperatures from raising below 1.5, 2 degrees at the most, we're going to see a mass die-off of biodiversity, but we're also going to be experiencing social problems where people who could make a living now can't. And it's going to really change the makeup of Africa, and certainly South Africa. So to your point, business needs to wake up. It's everybody's business. COP, and what's really jumping out at me at COP28 is the fact that it's everybody's business, both people on the street, civil society, and governments and private business all need to take this hugely serious, and time is of the essence. One of the main things coming out of COP is that time is not a luxury we have, and there's a short window period, and if we're not going to make these changes, we're all going to feel the brunt of it.
Just a final one, Duncan. Was there any conclusion or resolution, or is there anything that signaled towards a resolution that says that pledges and commitments that are made must be binding? We know what happened with the Paris Agreement and how the US decided to pull out. We know what happened with our just energy transition and the commitments that have been made by the global North, Western countries, saying that this is the money that we are committing in terms of grants or even preferential loans to South Africa. And as Minister Barbara Creasy has said, that money hasn't been forthcoming.
Well, there have been a number of pledges and commitments, and let's hope they are forthcoming. One thing that I have been very pleased with this COP is that there have been 28 COPs before this, And people are saying that the same story is coming up, not only with pledges from the north, but also commitments in terms of climate reduction, movement from fossil fuels and putting huge money into fossil fuels and not moving to a greener energies and greener economies. This COP, there seems to be an acknowledgement of that, and there seems to be this feeling that stop talking and start doing and start implementing. If you don't start implementing, there's going to be serious repercussions. So I've got a feeling that this may be the catalyst. This COP could be the catalyst, and we could see real change on the ground, commitment from the global north flowing to the global south. And I think with a South African cap on, I think the Just Energy Transition is the program to make that happen. It seems to have all the right parts and makeup, and seems to have the commitment, and government seems to have gone beyond just a plan. It seems to really be a next step, tacky hitting the tar. They've raised, I think, in the region of 700 million already, and it obviously needs top up. But I think they're on the right track, and I think we're going to do great things here. And hopefully we can say goodbye to load shedding and goodbye to our energy problems.
Thank you so much for your time. Duncan McFadyen, who is the Head of Research and Conservation at the Oppenheimer Generation, currently joining us from COP28. And the UAE saying $83 billion have been mobilized in commitments in the past 5 days.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked scuff team to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Aquele.
Aquele.
Aqueli.
Aquela.
Aquele.
Aquili.
Aquele.
Aquela.
No matter how you say it, one thing's for sure, Aquele has been your trusted natural spring water and delicious flavored sparkling drink for 25 years. Celebrating 25 years of refreshment and joy. Thank you, Mzansi, for your support and making us your favorite water brand. Aquele, spreading joy for 25 years.
EFC is live this Thursday. 3 incredible title fights in one night. The welterweight strap is on the line as Mark Hume takes on Peace Ngopane. And the most dominant featherweight Iga Cabeza faces the only man he has lost to in 6 years, the Pitbull, Ronaldo Exon. Plus, the finishing machine Humphrey King Cobra Malenga takes on Kaleka Kabanda for the vacant lightweight title. EFC 110, watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Going beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear.
0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. We're about to deal with an ongoing problem, and that is in relation to money that is supposed to be paid by the state to its service providers, and there is delays in payments that are being made to service providers. So I'd love to hear from you if you are somebody who is in business with government or offering services to the state. Is the state able to pay you in time? Has the state been able to pay you within the 30 days that have been prescribed, or how long is it that you had to wait for payment to be made? So the Public Service Commission has shared their quarterly bulletin for the period of the 1st of July until the 30th of December 2023. The bulletin, in the bulletin, the PSC revealed that government has amassed an outstanding bill of around 4.7 billion rand to its suppliers, and over 36,000 invoices have not been paid after 30 days from the date of issue. So the provinces that are the biggest offenders is the Eastern Cape, followed by Gauteng, as well as the Northwest. To talk more about this non-compliance and how it compromises the bottom line of small to medium and micro enterprises, we're joined by Gregory Mufugeng, Vice President of the Black Business Council. Gregory, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Aldrin, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners.
So this has been an ongoing problem, and if you look as far back, for instance, as 2015, government's 30-day payment compliance compliance to service providers, why are we finding that there is no adherence to what needs to be done within the 30 days? Have you been able to establish what the bottlenecks are as the Black Business Council?
Yes, Aldrin, we have managed to discover where the bottlenecks are. As you say, this is an old problem. It's not a new problem. So we've looked at it from many angles. If you look at some of the reasons why we are given, why SMEs are not paid on time, they include things such as, mistakes on invoices, issues relating to non-availability of budgets, issues relating to contractual disputes and so on. So we've had quite a number of interactions with government to try and find solutions to these problems. But I think one of the issues, Aldrin, that we need to be very aware of is that the problem here is that the very culprits have to report these figures to compliance and governance structures. So, for instance, when you look at this report, it will talk about national departments, provincial departments, and so on. And you'll find that, in fact, we believe that the problem is far bigger and that there's gross underreporting here because if you think about it, the DG will not disclose fully if there is a problem in his department because the DG will then know that, that performance will not be looked at kindly by Parliament or by provincial legislators. So our problem is that we are of the same view that the problem is much more wider, the problem is much more bigger, and what is being reported on now, is only a fraction of that problem. But most significantly, again, there is no consequence management, and that's why the problem never gets to be resolved. It will never go away until a DG, an HOD, or an MM loses his or her job for not paying SMEs on time.
So if you look at SONA 2022, the president announced the appointment of Sipho Nkosi to head up a team that will cut red tape. And as part of the president's State of the Nation address, this is what he said. The red tape team will identify priority reforms for the year ahead, including mechanisms to ensure government departments pay suppliers within the required 30 days. Has this happened?
No, it has not. And we are participants in that team that Mr. Nkosi is leading. And we can assure you now we are nowhere closer to resolving this problem, even using that as a platform to address this challenge. So that's the short answer, Adrian, that there is no resolution in sight using that team that is led by Mr. Nkosi.
Then what's the answer?
The answer is for the Public Service Commission to be serious about this issue. Every year they publish this report, and every year they request affected parties, SMEs, to submit invoices to them. I have never heard them come out and say that action will be taken against those officials that are not doing their jobs. And that's the bottom line here. If there is no consequence management, this problem will remain forever, Edwin. And I mean, one of the issues that really is a serious one for us is that you will find that in some instances, invoices are not paid for trivial reasons. If you say to me that your invoice is missing an annexure, why don't you just call me so that I can be able to attach that annexure and then you can pay me? But what is also worrying is that some of these officials plan their lifestyles around invoices for SMEs, and every time they have to pay SMEs are expected to thank somebody for doing their job. And this is also a serious problem that we are finding in the system. And for as long as the PSC just says, give us invoices and we can report on the incidents, it does not help. We need consequence management.
And in Gauteng, because didn't Gauteng announce that there will be consequence management when it comes to the non-compliance of payments within the 30 days?
Well, the report does indicate that Gauteng, although Gauteng has fared better, the fact of the matter is that there are still invoices that have not been paid within 30 days. They must tell us then. Maybe you need to call them and interview them and find out who has been fired or who has faced discipline disciplinary procedures for not paying SMMEs on time.
We'll take you up on that. Thank you so much. Gregory Mufokeng, Vice President at the Black Business Council, speaking about what the Public Service Commission revealed earlier on, that around 4.7 billion rand in outstanding invoices that government departments have amassed, and that's around 36,000 invoices that have not yet been paid. And we know the impact that this has on small to medium enterprises that actually rely on that liquidity to get the business running. And you know how difficult it is for them, of course, also to find finance from the banks. And then you have an account that is on 0-0, yet you have rendered a service. I remember a story of an SMME owner who once spoke about how they had to close the business because government wasn't paying, and having to tell their staff that unfortunately there won't be salaries at the end of the month. It's 5:30, time for the news headlines.
In the headlines of this half hour, the South African Pavilion has officially been launched at the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai. The Border Management Authority says it stands by its report regarding the interception of 42 buses carrying unaccompanied minors at the Beitbridge border post. And the rand is firm to around 18 rand 85 against the US dollar after earlier breaching the 19 rand mark. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite heavy on the run now through Midrand up to Pretoria. A couple of breakdowns, one on the N1 North. It's a stationary truck at Old Joburg Road, so that's very quickly pushed traffic back to New Road. And once you get past that, it gets heavy again into a breakdown at Rigel Avenue with a queue back as far as Buerta Avenue. There is a felt fire on the N1 South going into Malabongwe, so from Buccleuch, that run through is very slow. And a crash on Ballyclare Drive this afternoon. If you're on that route out of Sandton towards Bryanston, just factor in some queue time. Traffic just sitting on that section of Ballyclare. Now, Durban, a collision scene on the N2 North up by Subaya a little bit earlier this afternoon. That's jam-packed. If you're heading up to the airport and you're in a hurry, you might want to take the M4, the Ruth First Highway, and get up to the airport that way. Avoid the N2. It is queuing heavily from just around the gateway exit. Somerset West in Cape Town, really slow today. The Broadway Boulevard at Main Road, I think the traffic lights are down there. That's Lord Charles. And then the other side of the N2, the Broadway Boulevard section through Strand area, looking unusually busy. And the other standouts are really the Atlantic Seaboard, Clifton, Camps Bay, absolutely jam-packed. And the Cape Town CBD coming in or going out between sort of Greenpoint, the waterfront, and the CBD. There's terrific congestion in that area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's Egg Khan.
Yes, in Shona, I'll have you know, that's the meaning of my name. Well, listen, we're bringing good meaning to football action tonight. You've got the defending champions, Mamelodi Sundowns, travelling to face AmaZulu at Moses Mabhida Stadium with the two teams on opposite paths, as Sundowns are winners of 8 straight, while the hosts, they look to reverse a 4-match PSL winless streak. Pablo Franco's AmaZulu side sit in 11th position on the Premiership log standings, but a victory tonight could see them climb into the top 8. Now, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies will secure their third successive Hollywood Bet Super League title. They defeated TS Galaxy Queens 1-0 at the Lucas Moripa Stadium this afternoon. The result sees Sundowns in pole position with 75 points on 28 matches, equal in points with the University of Western Cape in second place, who have already wrapped up their campaign, but with an inferior goal difference. This means Sundowns cannot be caught with 2 matches in hand. The feat means Jerry Shabalala's Chargers have completed a treble. That includes a CAF Women's Champions League trophy as well as a COSAFA Cup title. Sundowns ladies have scored 93 goals while conceding 15 in 28 matches, and the coach has been named among the nominees for the league's coach of the season amongst as well. Now let's go to Newcastle United, where their goalkeeper Nick Pope will be sidelined for around 4 months with a shoulder injury, and this according to manager Eddie Howe. He was in the list of absentees that are continuing to grow in the team. England's Pope, who needed surgery on his same shoulder in 2018 while at Burnley, he suffered a dislocation while diving during last weekend's 1-0 Premier League victory over Manchester United. Cricket, and the Proteas women's assistant coach Thandi Shabalala wants his team to go back to basics, especially in terms of bowling and playing spin in the second T20 against Bangladesh, taking place in Kimberley, 6 p.m. tonight. Shabalala, who played T20s for the Proteas men's team, believes this will allow the home side to regain the advantage of their 13-run loss in the opening match that took place in Benoni. And finally, Ika Kabesa is out to prove once again why he's the greatest MMA champion on the African continent. Kabesa is the reigning EFC featherweight champion and will defend his title in the event of EFC 110 against Ronaldo Exon. Kabesa is a legend in the local MMA. He's only lost 2 fights in his professional career, with one of those losses coming against Exon. The Brazilian shocked the world when he beat Kabesa in round 1 of their title fight at EFC 86 in June 2021. Now Kabesa aims to prove their first fight was a fluke and that he is the champion for a reason.
I'm more than ready today, and today I've trained, prepared. It's been 2.5 years since I fought him. 2.5 years till today I haven't stopped training. So I mean, let's see if he comes right again. To be honest with you, it's very important to keep the belt for me. I mean, there's a lot of things in the pipeline that's happening, and this fight is taking a lot of. But the results of this fight is going to be very, very important.
And that's a wrap of your sport on Beyond the Headlines. Look out for Michael Abrahamson. He'll be up at 7 with Top Sport on SFM. I'm Zai Khan.
Rand Water is concerned about the significant increase of water consumption in its areas of supply. The increase in water consumption is putting severe strain on Rand Water's distribution network. To save water, please do not wash your cars with hose pipes. Use buckets. Water your garden with sprinklers between sunset and sunrise. Do not wash your pavements with hose pipes. Use brooms. Repair your leaking taps. Cover your swimming pools to avoid quick evaporation. Shower instead of bathing in a tub.
This message is sponsored by Rand Water in partnership with City of Joburg, City of Ekurhuleni, and City of Tshwane.
It's the celebration of the century, and you're invited. We've already given away almost 3 million rand with 56 daily vouchers won. Buy a new Ford before 31 December and you could win a 50,000 rand voucher or the grand prize of us paying for your new Ford. Visit your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
Eintracht Frankfurt plans to have things their way when they clash with the giants of German football Bayern München. They believe a win is more exciting on home ground, while the Bavarians are gunning for strictly 3 points to settle at the top of the table. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the superb contest between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern München on Saturday 9 December at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Going beyond the headline with Aldrin Sampear.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for MoneyWeb Market Update with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, good evening. Welcome to the show. What's coming up?
Good evening, Aldrin. Good evening to the listeners. Today's show is quite an interesting one. We're following up on that Tongaat story, the interdict to prevent that business rescue vote coming up. We just do a bit of a deeper dive into why now, what's happening. I mean, there's 1.1 billion rand involved there that's owed in levies. So we dig into that story in a bit of detail. I speak to the president of SEFSA, that is the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of South Africa, around that steel master plan. I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago we had a announcement around needing to manage the steel sector a bit differently. Then there was a steel master plan that was put in place. Now we're hearing that this might be falling apart. So we just get a sense of what's happening within the steel sector. It's such a critical sector within our economy, and it forms the backbone of a lot of the other economies and a lot of the other markets that, or a lot of the other trade that takes place within our economy, especially if you think about the manufacturing sectors, the mining sectors. The steel sector forms a critical component in a lot of these areas. We also get a sense of long-term investing. I chat to Alan Gray's Chief Investment Officer around how to best position yourself from a long-term mindset. We've gone through quite a bit of time in the last couple of years with ups and downs, and how do you weather these ups and downs with a long-term view, so that whatever you're investing in or whatever your portfolio looks like survives these unexpected occurrences that occur from time to time. And then because it's Wednesday, we've got our executive feature, and on today's Executive Lounge, I'm catching up with the CEO of My Way, gentleman by the name of Burton Naika, who's been in the industry for quite some time. He came from Outsurance and joined My Way a little over or almost 2 years ago. So we just get a sense of what he gets up to and what he enjoys doing when he's not managing an insurance company. But we'll dig into all of those stories a little later on. For now, the markets have been quite an interesting sight throughout the day. I mean, we had some negativity yesterday. We're seeing some positivity today. More importantly, and I think this is probably where we want to be, the rand is strengthening, but at the same time, oil is weaker. I've never been so excited to see the oil price at $75 a barrel. And this is important because typically what we've seen is if the oil price weakens, we've seen that the rand has, or if the oil price is softer, we're seeing that the rand is weaker at the same time. But for once today, the rand is actually doing well. But Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on the markets for us throughout the day, and he's going to give us a quick wrap of some of the other indicators and movements throughout the day. Good afternoon, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. 0.5% against the dollar is a good start. Bitcoin as well. That seems to be motoring on. What's been going on?
Yes, Jimmy. Good evening to you and Aldrin, and good evening to all the listeners. And of course, like you said, with the dollar, I beg your pardon, with the price of Brent crude and the oil price, as well as the rand strengthening, the combination of those two and the direction that the two of those are going into, that's where you get the ideal combination and you hit the sweet spot and the winning formula for a fuel price decrease in the future. But let's see where that goes. And then, like you said, the price of Bitcoin now comfortably sitting at 850,000 rand for a Bitcoin, and that's almost $45,000 for a Bitcoin. But I must say, around the world on all the markets, mostly all the markets, it's in the green. In the US especially, with the Dow Jones, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, each about 0.5% stronger at this stage. They're still busy trading, still a long day ahead for them. But the European stocks closed in the green, with the FTSE 100, the DAX and the CAC 40 each finishing about 0.7% stronger. Very similar picture here by us on the JSE, finishing 0.3% up and finishing at a level of 75,401 points. The financial index gained 0.5%. The resources index 1.1% stronger. It's only the industrial index which pulled a little bit back and lost about 0.5%. The company BHP had a good day, 2.5% up. Anglo, similar, 2.5% stronger. Glencore and Richmond each gained 1.5%, and FirstRand finished 1% up. But it was a terrible day for British American Tobacco, and BATS is one of the 10 largest companies on the JSE. BATS finished 10% weaker at the end of the day. Together with it, we saw other smaller companies like Alphaman losing 6.5%, Coronation 5.5% down, Sasol lost 4%, 91 and Investec each 3.5% weaker, and Reinet finishing the day 2.5% down. But then on the positive side again, Amplats and Implats 3.5% up today. The MTN Group and Exaro each gained 3%, and South32 Equities and Growthpoint finished 3% stronger. On the commodities market, I still like the price of gold, currently sitting at $2,030 an ounce, silver $24, platinum trading at $900 an ounce, and palladium at $965. Like you said, price of Brent crude going in the right direction, and that's down, now trading at $75 a barrel. The rand strengthening a bit, now trading at 18 rand 80 to the US dollar, 23 rand 70 to the pound, 20 rand 30 to the euro, and 12 rand 40 to the Australian dollar. And Bitcoin really doing very well, almost $45,000, and that's just above 850,000 rand for a whole Bitcoin. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed today.
Thanks very much for that update, Henko. Clearly, we're going to be very, very close to that million rand mark on Bitcoin before the end of the year. Still keeping an eye on that, still waiting to see if we get to that level. But we'll dig into these and other stories just after 6 p.m. For now, Aldrin, we're going to cross back to you and the team, and we'll be around later.
Thank you so much. That is Jimmy Moyaha. He's back again just after 6 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032. Your voice notes on 0614 104 107. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear and comments on our Facebook and YouTube page where we are streaming live.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Aldrin and fellow SFM listeners, good evening. My name is Tulani Nzima in Croydon. You know, Aldrin, whatever the public service is trying to achieve, it will come back and haunt them. One, government employees, I'm speaking from experience, are not well paid. Secondly, all avenues are being closed just because you are working for the public sector. Think about this. They ask you whether you've got any relative working for the state. When you are applying for tenders, they want all the unnecessary disclosures to be done. Do you think the government will be able to attract people, professionals for that matter, who would want to go and work for them, only to be subjected to such things just because you've got a criminal record, or you were unfairly found guilty of misconduct just because there are people who are fighting against you, because you are fighting corruption in those particular departments, and then you will never ever be employed by government? That's unfair. It's not going to work to their advantage. Thank you.
Yeah, but do you then stop your processes of ensuring that there is oversight, ensuring that there is no conflict of interest, just because you fear that you may not be able to attract the type of talent that you really require in public service, but also the oversight as well as the issues that are being raised around the conflict of interest is because there have been people who have been looting the state. And there have been people who've been using their proximity to, let's say, for instance, the supply chain managers to use that proximity to benefit the people close to them. So how do you deal with that particular element? I'm speaking about supply chain. Toivo on X says that in most instances, delays in payment are caused by the end users' internal units within departments who, for no reason, take forever to submit the GRNS to supply chain for them to instruct finance to effect a payment of services rendered. And I asked what GRNS is, and he explains that good received notes. It is a note that after receiving a service, you fill it and send it to your supply chain team, confirming that the goods or services were delivered, and therefore finance can proceed and pay. If you delay, it delays even the payment to the service provider.
Good afternoon, Adrian. Good afternoon to the SAFM listeners. Adrian, the biggest challenge that the small business faces is the cash flow, and the main cause of this is the government institution not paying them in time. I think that needs to be resolved, and it has been like this for quite some time. Sekwanele from Pretoria.
Hi, Aldrin. Martins from Kabeja. My experience with government is, well, the government departments, they're pretty okay, you know. Some of them are able to achieve the 10 days, 14 days. I've never actually waited more than a month on government.
Oh, you're lucky, eh?
Unless there is a problem, you know, with whatever from their side. But the worst is the municipalities. The municipalities are the worst. You know, you can remember at one stage I worked and I had to wait about 3 months because the municipality is saying it doesn't have money. They have to wait for the budget to be transferred to them from the National Treasury. You know, if let's say you worked in March, you have to wait for July. Then when their money is dispersed, then only when you get payment. So it's really bad. It's bad.
The opposition will not be able to obtain power because of the EFF and the ANC working together as a bloc. The 10%, which will probably be 15% after this election, and the ANC around about 50%, will give them majority in parliament. And I don't see the opposition having the numbers, even though they are joining into a coalition, I don't think they'll be able to stand against the ANC and the EFF. They have to drastically change their policies to attract the black voter, especially amongst the youth. And I don't know how they're going to do that. Leonard from Pietermaritzburg.
Thank you, Leonard Butle, on Access, that your vote is your power indeed, but that can at times just be a platitude. It's a failure of parties if they can't win the confidence of voters, and not a failure of the voter. In some jurisdictions, they have a none of the above option at the bottom of the ballot. And Bond saying, at least even if you are not going to vote, so just in case you change your mind, you have an option to vote. In regard to penalties, a person who didn't vote, he or she must not be considered for employment, both government or private or service delivery. What happens to human rights? Because at the end of the day, it is a human being that you are dealing with here, and who needs water, who needs services to be provided for them, and who's also going to need food, right? Let's go to Tato, who's joining us from the Free State. Good evening.
Hi, Aldrin. My take on the voting and elections, I think it's very important for young people to vote. But my concern really is not so much about how many people vote. Obviously, we would like everybody that's eligible to vote. But the problem is with the rigging of the votes. We know it happens a lot. I mean, we just recently had by-elections in Mangaung, and we believe those elections were rigged because, I mean, a lot of people vote for other parties, but the same party wins the elections all the time.
How do you know? How do you know? What if those people come back to vote for the same party?
Well, I have a personal experience. Number one, I mean, it's been on social media. We know most of the people that are employed in the IEC, Independent Electoral Commission. Those are people from SATU, and those that are not SATU, 9 out of 10, it's just an estimate, are likely to be members of the ruling party. So that process of electing officials for the IEC needs to be transparent, because if we don't have proper monitoring and control systems in place, then even if it's 500 million people that vote, it's not going to make a difference, because the elections at the end of the day will get rigged. I don't have the evidence.
What do the party agents,
agents,
what do you think of the role of the party agents in trying to avoid the rigging as well as the observers?
Exactly my point. But you see, the problem is not all parties have got the capacity and the resources to ensure that they've got party agents. I mean, I am a leader of a political party that is quite a new political party. So we don't have the resources to have as many party agents as we would like to have. So it poses a challenge for us to have the eyes and ears on the ground to do the monitoring and control. So there needs
But
to be
can't
proper
other
systems.
political parties do that on your behalf? Let's say, for instance, Tato's Freedom Fighter political party, Mangaung, is registered in a certain area, and you want to focus on that particular area. And then you say to other parties that we will be vigilant on your behalf while you be vigilant on our behalf in areas where we can't be in.
Absolutely, that could be done, but it's very difficult for political parties, especially opposition political parties, to work together. We've seen the moonshot initiatives and so many other things, but those things are not working because the opposition parties are not united.
Yeah.
The DA and the Action SA, they want to work together, maybe a little bit of IFP here and there, but the arrogance of the DA just makes it impossible for all opposition parties to work together. So that could work to bring together jointly all the resources and say, you watch my back while I watch yours.
Indeed.
But then it's not really the responsibility of the political parties. There needs to be a responsibility from the IEC itself and other independent organizations to ensure that we
But you already said that you don't trust them.
Well, we don't trust them.
Yeah,
but
so the other
we need
way
to
to
bring
do
other
the
stakeholders.
oversight monitoring would be to have your party agents there.
That I agree, but that in itself is not enough. The challenges that I've just alluded to. So we need to bring in other parties like international observers and so on and so forth. But really, the problem is not about the people that are not voting. It's the vote rigging. People vote, they want change, but the same
I
results
don't
we get all the
know.
time.
I don't know,
Well,
Tato. I don't know, Tato, because people. And here's the thing, also, is that when you listen to, let's say, a sample of listeners on talk radio, you perhaps will hear a dominant view in this particular case that is anti-ANC. But your vote is not on the airwaves. Your vote is there by the ballot paper and the ballot box. And what the ANC has consistently shown is that even though there is this disillusionment by some voters, it's still able to secure the majority of the voters who actually participate in the elections. That is what the ANC and I guess maybe one of their strengths as well is heading into the elections, and one of the polls that we were speaking about just the other day indicated that as well, that the ANC may poll very poorly now, but heading into the elections, the polling all of a sudden, this is now opinion polls, all of a sudden change because people express confidence in the majority, the ones who are registered to vote and who are actually voting in the ANC. Vugani saying on X, Aldrin, I've started voting since 1994 and I will never stop. I've realized that people don't vote because they don't benefit directly. For me, as long as someone out there do benefit from the government I voted for, it's fine. And that is from Vugani in Mufftown. Oh, shucks, that text disappeared. There was a text that I actually wanted to read a bit earlier on. Okay, here it is. The person says, Good afternoon, Aldrin. All the years I've been voting, but this time I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter who you voted for. Not this time. The last time I had a job was in 2008. Since then, dololo, I've decided to work as a sex worker and I've saved up money, so I will open a business, so no vote from me.
Aldrin, Peter from Bloem, since we're going to nitpick on semantics, considering voter turnout, which is extremely low for every election, I think it is grammatically or semantically correct to say some people vote for the ANC. Less people vote for other parties, but some people vote for the ANC. The vast majority of people don't actually vote.
Yeah, but I did say that I qualified that statement by saying that it is the vast majority of people in comparison to the ones who voted for other political parties or the opposition. So in comparison to the ones that actually participated in the election, the vast majority of them actually voted for the ANC. On X, Kid Joy saying that we vote, but rigging of votes are discouraging people. Got caught, but they're free instead of being charged by treason. ANC members work for the IEC. And Mzu saying that my question exactly, what's the role of party agents? We've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SAFM BTH 326 with me, Aldrin Sampear. Today we are playing out with Judith Sipuma Chiwana, and our parting shot is from Judy Garland, who once said, always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else. And Michael is reading our credits this evening.
Unstrap your seatbelts, we have landed. Thank you for choosing Beyond the Headline Airlines. We would like to thank Mr. Aldrin Sampear behind the mic. We would like to thank Zai Khan on the sports desks. And we'd like to thank the whole production team, Temba, Kanya, Husani, Phineas, and Lundi. Thank you for choosing Beyond the Headline Airlines.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
And remember to love each other and lead with compassion. Totsins, enjoy the rest of your evening.
You are